P&Z and then wetlands. Are we all set? We're going to call this meeting to order at 7:05 on October 17th, 2017. First order of business will be a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mayor is on vacation, so for this evening, you're going to have to put up with me. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Fawnin.
Here.
Councilor Angeloni.
Here.
Councilor Arment.
Yep, here.
Councilor Candelora.
Here.
Councilor Diamond. Here. Councilor Lewis.
Here.
Councilor Miller.
Here.
And Councilor Rose.
Here.
Thank you. The minutes of October 3rd, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Candelora, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any discussion? Corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You don't want a roll call?
All right, the regular town council meeting, reports of committees, boards, and commissions, economic development.
Economic Development, at their last meeting, they discussed signage issues, and they did come to a consensus regarding the signs that is in our packet, so I'll defer to that part of the packet.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Park and Rec,
Next meeting is on the 25th. The last meeting was reported on at our last meeting.
Police Commission.
Police Commission met on October 10th. I think the two most important topics in the agenda were the update on the 911 Center and the Narcan program, which Mike is going to talk about later on.
Okay, Fire Commission, I think that's traditionally the mayor who is not here, so unless somebody else has any information regarding the Fire Commission, we'll move over that. Board of Ed and Town Council's Communications Subcommittee.
No report.
When are we gonna be meeting with them regarding the budget? Is there,
I don't know if they have their budget schedule developed yet. They're probably going to take action on that soon, so, and my guess would be it would have to be after the election, anyway, just so that we see. The administrators usually start working on it within the next month or two.
Okay.
So,
it'll be in short order.
yeah, they haven't set their schedule for their dates yet, so I don't know if they want to meet with us prior to presenting to the board, or if they want to wait until after that.
Shouldn't that be a part of our discussion, though? I mean, shouldn't we have some sort of discussions regarding what the town is facing and what our options may be going into that, going into their budget process?
We can, but I guess we have to, I mean, my feeling is we are still waiting for a state budget, on that. I don't see us meeting earlier than in November,
Well, right.
with them. But I know they have a meeting on Thursday, and they have the budget subcommittee meeting at 6 o'clock, and I'll be happy to bring it up with them and see what their feeling is.
Okay.
In regards to it and what their plan of action is. See if we can get something.
Okay, thank you. Town Planning Goals Subcommittee.
No meeting?
Public Safety
No.
Communications Committee.
No meeting?
Planning and Zoning.
Their next meeting will be the 19th, and their major previous issues are on our agenda tonight on the healthcare facility housing.
All right, and lastly, East Shore Health District.
Anthony?
I wasn't able to attend that first meeting.
You are on our designee to the.
Yeah, I'll get the next one.
Okay. The next item of business is a public hearing, which is too early to convene, so we will move over that and move to the town manager's report.
Yeah, first item is the, item A, the eviction process of 400 Tucket Road, and I believe Councilor Miller had requested that. So I put together a memo that's in your packet in terms of the process, working with the owner and Pat Young and Fran Marola to come up with a compromise. So we avoided having to take any of that equipment or property and remained on site, so we dodged a bullet in that respect.
And is there an auction date set so that the matter is at an end?
Not yet. It's coming, and I believe that's later this month. I don't know if Fran has the date, but that hasn't transpired yet.
Everything's gonna revert to the owner
Yeah,
after the 30 days.
right.
After what date,
30
Fran?
days from the date of the auction, the date of the eviction.
So they're
Actually,
not
they're-
going to conduct a public auction?
We're not, the town is, no. So, the landowner and,
But I noticed in the package that we had given the parties involved, the sheriff, the landowner, and the evicting party, an indemnity. I'm just wondering when that ends, which is why I'm asking.
November, that would be November 3rd.
November 3rd, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, it was just, I appreciate the cooperation, Pat, and Fran. I gotta give, credit to Fran in terms of the.
Okay, on the agenda, there's something about the Narcan. Are you reporting on that?
No, I'm gonna defer to Lieutenant Lovelace, who's here to talk about both the Narcan and the 911 system.
Okay, before you do, Jim, we had pending from our last meeting, Mike, on economic development on a grant writer, and you were going to look into a grant writer who worked on a commission.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on that?
No, most of it, like I said, I think I did mention and confirm the fact that Larry Wagner is one of the best in the state, and he has multiple towns, and that's his revenues derived from administrative fees that come from grants of the community development block grants, small cities grants, which I think we may be eligible for. I'm not sure, but I think it's mainly geared toward housing and not economic development.
Well, I seem to remember that there was a person's, and their name.
Oh,
was-
yes, you're right. Yeah, Randy Frank have not been able to contact. She's the other, I think that came from Anthony, but I've not heard from Randy Frank. I think that's, yeah, correct.
nothing yet.
Okay, well, I mean, this is a problem, because at some point, something has to be done. We all know that. And, at this point with the budget, there's no possible way we can go forward with this position that we did budget for and hope to have. But I was really hoping that we would hear something from you on that possible alternative to us actually having to make a hire. So, a little disappointed.
Mike, I think the Middlebury first selectman has a name. I don't remember the first selectman's name, but when we visited the police station, he was there, and he said he has somebody. If you can get his name and contact him, I think he has a part-time person that does it basically that way.
Anything else on this topic?
No, I'm sorry, Jim. No. Beg your pardon.
Jim Lovelace?
Thank you. Good evening. So first I'll do Narcan. Back in 2016, at the end of 2016, the state came out with a public act that said anybody that may first be on scene for a medical emergency has to be equipped with Narcan. So at that point, we developed a training program. Well, we didn't develop a training program. They had a training program, and we had a trainer come in, train all the officers. By July of this year. By August, what that requires is after you get the training, you have to go to the doctor at Yale. And they have to sign off and basically give the town or North Branford PD a prescription to purchase a Narcan. You can't just go out and get it at that point. Once we got that signed off, we bought basically a case of Narcan, and that cost approximately $1,000, which came out of last year's budget. So since then, we have 8 saves from the Narcan, and it's not just us, so it's not just the PD, but our guys had administered it, and then the FD responded, and obviously the medic and stuff like that, and then it was a team effort all the way through. So we burned through that $1,000 worth of Narcan by October of this year. Some of the people were multiple receivers of the Narcan. It only works on opiate overdoses, narcotic analgesics. There's a very small percentage of the population that might have a reaction, and that's just more of a burning sensation in the face, but that's a very small. You can use it on children all the way up to grown adults. Our K-9 officer carries one. We can use it for our K-9 if for some reason the K-9 ingested an opiate. So we've recently purchased another $1,000 in our case. So we're about a $2,000 expense at this time, all within our budget for now. So it's kind of a wait and see period to see how much we're going to use. I'm not sure, but we'll try to estimate the best we can as the budget season approaches for the next year.
How long did that first $1,000 case last?
For approximately 8 saves. At times it takes more than 1 dose, so at times you're using 3 or 4 on an individual. Depends on the individual. So it was for 8 people. It
was about 2.5 months
Yeah,
duration.
about 2.5 months.
That, I think
duration.
that's the question.
If that's what you're asking, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that,
so
Joe was asking.
we could be looking at $5,000 or $6,000 a year if that
Possible.
trend
Yeah.
is what we can expect in the future.
So at the special meeting, I was asked to look and see if we get a reimbursement for it. I
Right.
contacted the fire chief. The way they do their billing is just based on the level of service, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. But if they're BLS care, they bill for BLS care. They don't bill by what they use during that transport or level of care to the hospital. And the same thing as the ALS care, that's the 2 charges there. So the fire departments, company 1, 2, and 3, can't charge for things they use, and nor can the police department. So there's no way for us to refund the cost from someone who receives Narcan that I'm aware of at this time. So it's kind of a cost we're going to have to eat, but it's a cost we have because we're supplementary responders, and by the state law, we're required to carry it. So it's an unfortunate
So
need.
those 8 saves were just within a 2.5 month period?
It was, yes.
Wow. Is that pretty much what's happening across the country and the state? That
Yes.
It's worse elsewhere.
scary.
Yeah. Any questions on Narcan?
Good job.
So.
Yeah, how's the fire department now? They carry these also, correct? Or the?
Yeah, they carry naloxone, correct? Which is just a different, it's a different setup. Ours are just, there's no putting anything together. It's just take it out of the package, you squeeze, and it goes into the nostrils. Theirs requires a little bit of assembly, but they use different types of, I guess, treatments, I should say, that doses and stuff like that. That's why they have that set up.
Anthony, do you run on a prescription as well?
Correct.
So then how are our supplies on that end, on your end?
Well, it's the same.
It's the
a mirror
same-
of what
it's the
Jim's saying.
same-
Correct, it's the same. As he mentioned, the ambulance, the state prescribes your rates. You have a
Okay.
flat rate, it's not an à la carte rate. If you use oxygen, you bang $10 more. It's a flat rate that you charge. So regardless of what you use for supplies, you're limited to that rate for billing purposes. So as Ben also mentioned, when company 1, 2, and 3 use any medication or supplies, it's not reimbursed through the ambulance billing. The ambulance billing is solely what the paramedic prescribes or
Mhm.
administers, and his is an IV form of this same medication.
Okay.
So while the BLS folks are using the nasal, aspirating into their nose, the paramedics putting it directly into their veins, a whole different treatment.
Okay.
I think you gotta look at it more of like a gift of time, is basically what we're trying to give to the
Right.
medic to get on scene. Because that's really who the person who's gonna save your life, as far as I'm concerned. So that's basically what it does. It lowers, when you're an opiate overdose, it lowers your respiratory rate. So that's what we're trying to get back up. So it's administering the drug, and then it's managing an airway till you get the ALS care on scene.
Thanks, Jim. Are you reporting on the 9/11 system upgrade as well?
Absolutely. So that was almost a year-end project. Coming back to when I took over in December, we were in the midst of the dispatch center renovation. During that time, I started getting emails because of the 911 upgrade, which everybody in the state has to, every PSAP in the state has to go through. There's 109 PSAPs. We were listed at number 99 to be upgraded with an October date. So I knew ahead of time that we were going to be facing some extra costs, so we set some money aside in the renovation money because we needed headsets. There was going to be other upgrades to the dispatch center that were ultimately going to have to be done to be equipped with their equipment. So as I got closer, we had to arrange for every single vendor that's affiliated with the PSAP to be on scene during this time. AT&T was there for approximately 6 days working on the phone system and integrating our lines. So now what happens is if for some reason the PSAP 911 goes down, it automatically, without it, we used to have to make phone calls. So you'd have to do a routing, and AT&T would route your 911 calls to another location. Now it takes place automatically. So if the PSAP for some reason went down, it automatically, our first backup is North Haven, automatically gets transferred over to North Haven. When a 911 call comes in there, it shows as North Branford, and then with the digits afterwards. So they know it's a 911 call coming from North Branford. And they're not just going to transfer it back. All our dispatchers and their dispatchers have been trained that they have to answer that call, and then we'll get a hold of the resources that's needed. The same thing is for a PSAP, you're allowed so many trunks depending on how big your town or city is. We have 6 trunks. So once we get more than 6 phone calls simultaneously, those phone calls after that automatically now roll over to North Haven. And North Haven's will roll over to ours, or East Haven, or vice versa. So there's no lapse time. It still shows. It lights up a different color, so you know it's coming from a different town, and then you handle the calls and forward the information, whatever we need to be done. So the system going down now and having to worry about transferring calls and this and that or phone lines, it's done automatically. It's not to say the system can't fail with the servers or anything like that. I can't guarantee that. But all the safeguards have been put in place with this new upgrade from the state of Connecticut. New servers, new equipment.
And now the operator can be aware that there's a failure, as before they were not aware, correct?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. The system tells you automatically. So what you also notice is that we switched over for a majority of the dispatchers. Are still one getting used to it, but they're all on headsets now. The sound is much clearer from what I've been told from people out there. They also gives them availability where they're not tied to the desk. For some reason, if they had to go across the room to get something or whatever it is, they can still answer with the headsets. We tested them out. They reach all the way to the conference room of the building, and you can still dispatch stuff over there. Not that they have any reason to be back there, but they have a good distance. We bought good equipment. So that equipment alone was for the headsets, and you have to have a backup headset in case one goes down, so you can plug it in and go. We were looking at about $5,000 worth of equipment there. We had to purchase a new phone line. You have to have a dedicated phone line, so if things go down and things need to be transferred, for some reason your 911 system's down, then calls can be transferred to that dedicated phone. That's all it's used for. It's a separate phone line. We had to have electricians come in and put dedicated lines to the panel, home runs to the 911 system. We had to put new breakers in. So it was an assortment of phone calls and conference calls and months after, months and months of phone calls, but now we're up and running. It was a flash cutover, so there was no downtime ever. We actually got 911 calls as soon as we transferred over, which was, a fun scramble. But we are up and running.
Did you find space? I mean, how did you?
Our panel is maxed out, I can tell you that now. The electrician
Yeah.
said there's absolutely no way to put anything else in the panels we have. Not to say we couldn't put a sub-panel in at some time if we had to or something like that. But there's absolutely no space left within the electrical system that's there now.
How much of all that you had to purchase and do was paid for by the state?
They cover the equipment they bring.
But
That's
not the headsets, right?
The headsets we paid for in the town.
And AT&T covered their time on scene?
They cover their time, but we're gonna be covering the vendors that we had to bring in to be on scene while they did that cutover.
Okay.
And then there was time the dispatchers had to put in of implementing all the numbers. The system's more like a Rolodex now that's at your fingertips. Before we had books set up for emergency numbers. Now we can put virtually every number you could think of that we would use that's in the system that's now a point and a click.
But you had to manually input all that information, correct?
Yes, hours and hours of input,
Yikes.
So, and that was a complaint across the state, but the state wouldn't budge, they're not covering any of that cost. So it's kind of a quick rundown of what the new 911 system does. It's also a cell phone, and then all the maps are upgraded. They're all geo maps, so now you can zoom in, you can actually see the locations. Depending on the cell phone company, you can get within minimal feet of where actually a cell phone is originating from. Before, we were just getting a tower, and we had to try to figure out and triangulate from there. Now it automatically does it and shows you location, depending on the provider, a close distance to where the phone call is actually being made. So there's a lot more safety options that come with this. There's an option where you can actually see all the calls coming into the entire state from all the other PSAPs if you wanted to look at, see what's coming in. You can see where all the police departments are. The map is just this phenomenal amount of features that it provides you. But that's the technology where we're 20 years later from the last system. So it's going.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right,
Joe,
community events and
Just have one other item, just
Yeah.
a point of information is in your packet or in your folder should be a draft for the November 4th meeting. Obviously, we only have one meeting in November.
November 4th?
I mean, sorry, 14th.
Okay.
And, because the election's on the 7th, and historically, you've kept the agenda very light for just ceremonial purposes. I've just kept a couple of placeholders there, financial issues if we need to, but I also have two requests that are timely. One is a request from the cross-country team wants to come before the council to talk about naming the course and track after the late Floyd Parnett. So I don't know if you want to include that or push that off to the December meeting. And I also have a application that Carrie had given me notice that there's a company coming in, relocating from Guilford, that wants to be part of the assessment deferral program. So that would be the second item. And that's all I have at this point. So I don't know if you're inclined to deal with those items, just those two items, and leave the rest of it blank.
Well, I know there was talk at the last council meeting also about inviting the Board of Education to discuss budgeting for next year.
Right.
And since they will probably have 4 out of the 7 members being sworn in that night, I think it's a good idea to start there because, as Dan brought up before,
Right.
we might as well do it as a whole rather than do it in subcommittee
Mhm.
form.
Okay, so we'll add that.
Yes,
Invite them
I would
in.
like to see it on the agenda.
Okay.
I don't know
Any
about
other-
anyone else.
Does anybody have a problem with
The
the
other
agenda that Mike is proposing?
No, it's fine with me.
Any questions or comments on it? Go with it. Okay.
Thank you.
The clock and back says 7:30, but I think that's fast by about 5 minutes. So maybe out of an excess of caution, I'm just going to hold off for a couple of minutes, and we'll move on to the next item, then come back to the public hearing. Citizen statements, petitions, and correspondence. Anyone have anything they want to present to the town council?
Crickets.
I see somebody standing in the back. I'm not sure if they,
While we're waiting for that person to decide if they want to come up, I just want to remind everyone that on Saturday night, there is going to be a staff flag football game on the high school football field, and it's going to be Jerome Harrison TVS staff against NBIS and NBHS. And the whole purpose of this game, it's a fundraiser for the Love for Lila Scholarship. Lila Bogardus, it was a student at Totucket Valley who passed away Christmas Day last year, and she had a very brave battle of cancer for 7 years. And the town and the community have supported the family throughout her short life. And one of the staff members, Amanda Basil from TVES, has organized this, and we're hoping that it's a true community event. There's activities planned at halftime. There's a kids' obstacle course, face painting, bake sale. All proceeds are going to go for the scholarship. So we hope to see a lot of the community out there. And it's supposed to be a great day on Saturday and Saturday evening, so we hope to see a lot of you there.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, communications for the town council? If you could just give us your name and address, please.
Sure. Rita Nay, 1 Joe Stone Way in North Branford.
And I'm Lynn Reardon, 33 Durrell Farm Road. Come on. Okay, Rita's very emotional. She wanted to speak on behalf of her nephew. There was a fundraiser most recently at Duties, and this is addressed to not only the superintendent of town, but everybody else that was involved in this fundraising event to try to help Mike Russo. So I'll just read it. We can't begin to thank you enough for all the kind gestures you have bestowed upon our son Michael and also our entire family. Starting way back in 2010 when Michael was in high school and you made so many accommodations for him after his abdominal surgery to make sure that he could attend his graduation. It had already been a long journey to get him to that point, and it really meant a lot to all of us for Michael to be able to graduate with his class. These past 2 months have been extremely difficult for our family. As you know, Michael's recent brain surgery did not go as well as we had hoped. My niece Rita Nay, and committee had very generously arranged to hold a benefit at Duties for Michael. I should say that this actually is a letter from the Russo family, so I apologize for that. Before his surgery, Michael was very excited when he learned that this special event was going to be held for him. After surgery, it became a motivational tool for him, and he fought very hard to be able to attend it on September 17th. Prior to this event, Michael was pleasantly surprised when Scott Schoomer came to visit him at Gaylord. He kept telling all of his doctors and therapists how his North Branford school superintendent had come to visit him, and he proudly showed off all of the new North Branford apparel that had been gifted upon to him on that second visit. And then again, on the day of Michael's benefit, Michael was very, very thrilled. There was actually a police escort, which was a complete and total surprise to me. It was a gift from the police officers that were on duty at the time, and he felt like a complete and total rock star getting picked up at the Sportsplex and coming lights and sirens to be delivered at Duties. It was a very emotional time for all of us, to say the least. All of your generous actions have put a smile on our son's face throughout the years. He has always been a very special kid to his family, and seeing how the whole North Branford community has come together to support him has been totally overwhelming for all of us. Please accept a sincere thanks for all of your generosity. Sincerely, the Russo family.
Thank you.
So how is he doing now?
Michael, prior to surgery, when he was born, he had very limited mobility on his.
I'm sorry, it's okay. I'm sorry. It's okay.
I think the point here
Yeah,
is
I'm
that
sorry.
the North Branford community is a very, very, very special, special community. And I think that sometimes we all lose sight when we're all going for our own goals or our own agendas or what have you. But this is a very, very special place to live. And I think that's the point of all of this.
Thank you. All right, it is clearly a little after 7:30, so we'll go back to the public hearing that's noticed for 7:30. It's ordinance on White Hollow, Middletown Avenue, sanitary sewer extension. Do we have a notice that can be read into the record, Michael?
Yes, here,
And Marie's got it. She can show
I think I have
Richard.
the right one. Notice of public hearing, the North Branford Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 17, 2017, at 7:30 PM in the North Branford Town Hall Council Chambers. The purpose of the public hearing will be to hear comments on proposed ordinance number 2017-4, which amends Chapter 189 of the Code of the Town of North Branford entitled Sewers and Sewage Disposal, as summarized below. 189-9 definitions adds new definition for farm-related permitted activity. 189-11 use of lots outside primary service area adds section to allow new buildings for farm-related permitted activity to connect to the sanitary sewer system if septic system is not possible or feasible. 189-12 prohibits adds sections limiting discharge from farm-related permitted activity to sanitary sewer system to 3,000 gallons per day. Public comments on this matter are welcome. A copy of the proposed ordinance is on file in the office of the town clerk, Atwater Memorial Library, Edward Smith Library, and posted on the town's website. Dated at North Branford, Connecticut, this 4th day of October 2017. Lisa Valente, North Branford Town Clerk. Publication date October 12, 2017 in the Sound.
Thank you, Marie. The procedure I think we'll follow is perhaps Kurt could give us a brief update to remind us of exactly what it is we have under consideration. Thereafter, we'll take public comments either in favor or opposed to the proposed changes to the ordinance, and we'll entertain questions from the town council to either Kurt or anyone else who may have an interest in this particular ordinance. So Kurt, tell us what it is we're looking at.
Thank you. Good evening. Just basically to go over the history of the existing Whitehall Middletown Avenue sewer ordinance that was adopted in the early to mid-90s to basically control the discharges going into the Whitehall Middletown Avenue sewer line, which was sized and designed with limited capacity to handle specific area plus some extra areas in the Northford section of town. It was basically a 10-inch line was constructed down Route 17. It discharged to a pumping station, and that pumped over the hill and ultimately went into the North Haven sewer system. Again, the system was designed at direction of DEP with limited capacity, and the existing ordinance was enacted to define who tie into the system and under what conditions. What you have before you are a few proposed changes, which opens it up slightly to specific uses. One of the big things that's proposed to be added is a definition for farm-related permitted activities. I'm just going to read that briefly. It's activities in compliance with current zoning regulations that promote locally grown or produced agricultural products, including farm stands, wineries, breweries, and retail sale of locally grown or produced agricultural products, excluding activities resulting in the discharge of animal waste byproducts to the sewer system. This is a new definition added in there. And the ordinance would allow new buildings or new construction falling under that use to discharge the sanitary sewer, the Whitehall Middletown Avenue sanitary sewer system. If they meet certain criteria, and basically it's not open-ended, they have to be able to demonstrate that it's not feasible or they can't physically construct a septic system on site to handle their needs. And that final determination is left to the Water Pollution Control Authority. That's probably the bigger one. And really the impact should be a minor impact. I mean, basically the existing zoning allows wineries could connect in there, and that they're allowed under zoning. Some of these future listed in the farm-related permitted activities are anticipated future uses. Breweries, farm breweries. Planning and zoning is looking to possibly amend the zoning regulations to allow those uses, but they're very limited, and they will be site-specific, and they'll have certain criteria that they have to meet under zoning. Retail sale products, you can do a farm stand currently. I think there is some interest in doing some more sale of products for farm-related activities, which that will have to go before the zoning, Planning and Zoning Commission to look at some amendments that would allow that type of use in residential zones. So it's trying to be broad enough to allow farm-related activities, again with concurrence from planning and zoning of those uses. into the sewer system. So it's not anticipated to produce any type of flood into the sewer line. It may be minimal, nominal type discharges going into the system, because they have to meet the zoning criteria. The one thing that was also added in here is a limitation of 3,000 gallons per day on an average annual basis from any one site. That is a somewhat arbitrary number. I came up with that, trying to look with what seems reasonable and to put some type of limitation on there. And again, that 3,000 seemed to be a reasonable number in terms of what could discharge there on a daily basis, on an average annual daily basis. There was no science, well, there was somewhat of the science. I tried to look at something, a winery, what they might discharge with some seating, maybe tasting rooms and the like, and
Again, they can
try to
you can-
provide for that.
You can cap it, though. I mean,
Well-
that's the point here, right?
Well, yeah, and that's why I try to do it, because,
Right.
again, this is not an open-ended, open sewer system.
Right.
We're trying to limit and control what can discharge into that line. So that was
Just
the
remind
intent.
us, Kurt, how does that compare to a normal residential use on
A
a daily
residential
basis?
use is about 260 gallons per day on an average daily basis. So it's the equivalent,
12 times.
12,
Yeah.
something like that. But again, trying to, I mean, my feeling was there should be some type of restriction. We don't want to leave this open-ended. And that was the number I came up, and I'm open to other suggestions, but it seemed reasonable at the time. So, I mean, that's the gist of it. I left everything else the same in the ordinance. You know, I didn't want to rewrite anything. I just tried to add this, you know, the provision to allow the farm-related type uses into the sewer system. And again, it all comes back to WPCA has to make some findings along the way if someone wants to tie into it. So,
And how do you monitor that, Kurt, on the discharge? The 3,000?
the 3,000, we have in there that they'd have to put a water meter on the water supply feed. You know, anything up in that area, they're fed by wells, but they could put a water meter on that. So, I mean, that would be for billing purposes and to monitor that compliance with the requirements of the ordinance.
Any other questions from the council?
Make a motion?
Well, you have to,
I'm sorry, what?
Make a motion?
Well, no, you
Right.
can't, we haven't had anybody in the public.
No, you have to hear from the public.
Okay.
All right, any member of the public here to address this proposed ordinance?
One thing I just thought of, I want to add in, and going back, during the past several months, we've talked about, this was initiated with the old Mill Pond Tavern. It came up, they wanted to tie in. There's no change for something like that, because that's a pre-existing building. We had, the town attorney had given an opinion, basically, as long as they meet certain criteria, you know, they could tie into the system. So this is for all. This would affect currently if the winery wanted to connect in or some other farm-related activity. But my read on the whole thing all along was that, like the old Mill Pond Tavern, it's a pre-existing building. As long as they meet the existing criteria and subject to your approval, they could tie in. So this is really looking above and beyond the farm-related
So if Mill
activities.
Pond, if the old Mill Pond building tied in,
Yeah.
are they restricted to the 3,000 gallons per day, or do they have unlimited access?
I haven't, I didn't address them in terms of 3,000 gallons per day. It was really related to the
the farm-related
farm-related
activities.
activities.
Well,
But they
let
had
me
to
ask
be-
the hypothetical question then. If they add a building there that's a farm-related activity,
Mhm.
and you allocate a maximum of 3,000 gallons of effluent per day, are we then looking at 3,000 plus whatever the original building generates?
Potentially. I mean,
So
depending
should
on
we
how,
not-
how the lots were configured, if it's the same lot.
Should we not give some consideration to a restriction on commercial use?
Or on a
Yeah.
case-by-case basis.
And again, their number was about 3,000, and that was one of the things I looked at.
In the aggregate or per building?
On the billing, they anticipated.
existing
use-
building?
Existing billing, not to exceed that type of number. They could potentially get up to that, depending on how they set up their facility. So I don't have all the detail on that. But again, I just wanted to,
So it would be, so Joe's question was, so it would be 3,000 on the existing if we allowed it, and 3,000 on a farm-related, so it would be a total of 6,000.
Well, that's a projection, but I
Right.
don't think there's a
That's-
restriction. There's no limitation on the existing building, so it could be
Right.
5,000.
Right, but he just said he based it on, but I know there's
Preliminary
nothing in the
information I got
regulation.
from them.
Right,
That's
on the
correct.
information you got.
Right,
So that's how
right.
you came up with the 3,000.
I mean, and again, in the restriction, it reads, the volume of domestic sewage discharge from any single property approved by the Water Pollution Control Authority for a farm-related permitted activity. Oh, no, I'm sorry, you have, or use existing at the time of enactment of this article should not exceed 3,000 gallons per day on an average annual basis.
But there is no use right now.
Right. Well, in
So
existing
if this
use.
is enacted, there is no use right now. So is it former use?
Yeah,
It-
I mean, I would look at it as a restaurant, banquet use. I mean, that's the type of facility, for instance, the Mill Pond Tavern.
There it is.
Well, because it says use existing at the time of enactment of this article, the use right now is 0.
Well-
There is no use. So that, I guess,
Well, that's just because it's not,
well, there hasn't been either.
there
for-
hasn't been, but
Right, so
it-
there's no use, so
the
it's,
infrastructure is capable of that, though, right? Just because it's not occupied. you know,
But you're right, it's not being used.
it's not
correct.
being
It
used.
says the use that's existing at the time, so the use existing at the time is nothing. So if our intention is that we would want them to use it, then I just think we need clarification. We need to change that language a little bit, so it doesn't come back to bite us.
And I would read this as meaning it's $3,000, 3,000 gallons in the aggregate
Right.
from all buildings or structures on that property.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right,
we
it
probably,
says
we
it
probably
remains a
should
single
clarify
property,
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not ready to approve it, 'cause it, as just say from.
Well, we don't have to vote
Right.
tonight anyway, but that's neither here
Yeah,
nor there.
and we're welcome to any other comments
There is a
as well.
motion
but
in there, though.
That's how it was written, so
Okay.
I can take a
And
look
you
at
gotta
that.
fix that motion too. The heading's wrong.
Well, I have a question on that average annual basis, 3,000 gallons. At what point on daily use could a number possibly exceed the capacity of the sewage system?
They're gonna, but I would anticipate they're gonna have an average, depending on the type of facility, the use. I mean, again, you have busier periods, you know, and I wrote it as on an average annual basis, because that's really what we're gonna monitor the water use at. If they have to put a water meter on there, we're gonna read it once a year.
Yeah.
They could, you know, they could be putting 6,000 gallons a day in on particular days and using nothing on some days.
I understand
Yeah.
that. I got that.
Yeah.
My question was, is there a possibility on any particular day that some number could be reached which would overload the system?
No, but well, because the capacity as a whole, we're like 300,000 gallons under peak capacity, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're under, again, the biggest, I mean, the uncertain thing is sometimes when you get, it's wet periods, when you have a lot of rain, we have some infiltration and inflow.
Mhm.
That's probably a bigger impact sometimes in creating peaks. If it was just dry water that went directly in the system, it's really not an issue. And a lot of that, I don't see that being a big issue, because most of the time, when you have those heavy inclement type weathers, your usage is way down,
Yeah, it's down, yeah.
you know, for that type of event.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Kurt,
Yep.
to clear it up in my mind and probably Andy's,
This really would have nothing to do with the existing building. So he would be back before us to tie in, he'd have to prove that he can or cannot meet that criteria, right?
The same criteria, which
Criteria.
sort of started the process, and then we went to DEP.
Right, but this doesn't
The way I
address
read
the
it,
existing
yeah, the way I
building.
wrote it, or the intent was-
Unless he decided to go in there and do farm-related activities.
Absolutely. That becomes another activity that we have to look at on that basis. And there has been discussion of that possibility, so I'm trying to open it up to that type of, if you did some farm-related sales, again, that's not currently, it's currently allowed as a farm stand. Anything a little above and beyond that, you'd have to go back to planning and zoning and sort of look at the regulations to allow that. And then that would have to come back to WPCA for that connection to do that. The way I would see it is, if you wanted to start on the existing building, get a connection, come before the WPCA, he would provide all his engineering backup and demonstrate the need that he couldn't do something on site, it's not feasible, and then maybe leave provisions for some other future tie-in into that same line. That would be the way I would envision the process happening, but that's up to the applicant at that time.
So you put a meter on, and if the average daily uses can't exceed 3,000 gallons, so in a year's time, it's a little over 1 million. It's roughly 1.1 million gallons. So what happens 9 months into it and it exceeds? What happens that they've now exceeded? So what's the consequence, or
Yeah.
what do you can't shut them off of the sewer, so.
Well, aren't we talking about, though, I mean, maybe I'm looking at this in a much more global perspective, but we're talking about the system's capacity as a whole, right?
I know, but
And
then, but you would be violating the ordinance that we're writing.
That's why you put a meter on it, though.
I know,
But
so my
what-
question is, what
you-
happens if
what-
you exceed it
Before a year's over.
before the year is over? You're going to, there's nothing in the ordinance
What
that
does
says.
anybody do when a homeowner goes over a set capacity?
They don't have a set
They don't have
capacity.
Where does that happen anywhere, though? I'm just saying, like, I
But
don't
you're
know.
now defining capacity
Right.
for someone. And I guess, on the
Is
flip
this
side of
the
that.
only case? Like, has that ever happened before, Kurt?
Well,
I mean,
generally, what I've seen in the past, in some of these bigger facilities, if you look at the engineering data, and they'd have to come up with a number based upon, with some backup. Generally, they may, if they've estimated 50,000 gallons per day on an average annual basis, what I've seen, most time they come in around, the actual numbers more like 30 or 35, because generally engineers, when you look at the numbers, they're conservative numbers. So that's what I've seen. I haven't really seen when
Well,
you get
to
an engineer
address
probably
Rose's
coming over.
concern,
Pardon?
to address Rose's concern, maybe we want to have a punitive
Right.
user fee if you exceed the projected gallonage that you came in with at the time that you applied for approval to tie into the system.
an added cost, that's interesting. Yeah.
The hard part is the enforcement part of it. I am trying to think, because I did try to
I
think.
don't see this hard. We've got a sewer user fee now. If you don't pay it, there's gonna be a lien on your property. So if we put in a high user fee for exceeding the permitted gallonage, and you don't pay it, there's gonna be a lien on your property.
Because I think we'd have to look at our user fee regulations, separate from this, and to try to address something like that. I mean, we have to tie them together.
I mean, that's fine. It's just
Yeah.
that because we're now altering this ordinance and putting this in here, we just need
Yeah.
to make sure that everything follows through on it. I mean, because on the flip side, if a property does exceed that, then that means they're doing very well and it boosts the economy of the town, so that's great. But we just need to address it because we're changing the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to have to change the ordinance after they exceed it and go back and say, oh, wait a minute, we made a mistake, and now you have to pay
Yeah.
more for it. So if we're going to change the ordinance, let's just get it all done at one time.
Okay, I mean, I could look at that and try to come up with some wording on it. And talking to Pat and what we can do with it.
Right, any other questions or comments? Any public statement?
Cliff Potter, 1251 Middletown Avenue. I suggest you probably, again, talk to the man that's going to do it. Put it on hold. Let him talk to the department that's going to regulate it. If you remember, we have a restaurant nearby that went through a lot of this similar stuff. Planning and zoning, he wrote pretty much everything he was looking for. And now he's suing half of the town residents and everything else. We tend to over-regulate and understand what they're looking for, and now that's costing us town money. So I think you really need to sit down with a man that's got a good plan, not necessarily your level, take recommendations from him through this department, and then come back in a month or so and see where he might see something you don't, and where you might see something, and with the department that he's working with. Kurt's been talking a lot about it over the last 3 or 4 months, but Andy hasn't had much say. So I think it's okay to assume to a certain level, but when it goes off, way off track what you're looking for sometimes, I think you get off on the wrong track. Hopefully this regulation will help him, but at the same time, if it's missing something he really needs, you're gonna handcuff him. And again, so I think this town's got to learn from the mistakes it made with the situation within the last year or so. Planning and zoning, I'm not a big fan of theirs. I won't be on their fan club or their Christmas card list. They just, well, I'll shut up because I'll get in trouble and I'll have to go to court. But that was a big screw up. And let's not go that route again. You can't afford it, the lawyer fees. So again, I know you want to help a business, and that's what we need in this town, but let's make sure we're helping them, not handcuffing them through the proper departments. I don't think there should be a big rush to settle this tonight. You know, you're opening it up to get good ideas, and I think once you get some good ideas, you have to weed out the good and the bad and the ugly and come up with a good thing that will help them. And that's just my suggestion, only from what I've seen happen in the last year or so around here, and it's not pretty. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Anyone else?
I'd like to go. So, I am Andy Bizzuto. I am the guy that's trying to get
The
this
protagonist.
resolved.
The sewer guy.
Yeah. First off, guys, thanks, because honestly, we've been going through this for a few months, and it's new territory. So I'm appreciative of everybody's consciousness that it should be one of those properties that we may consider to go on the line. Again, the proximity of the location, the river that sits below it, and all of those reasons are absolutely the reason I brought it to you. My family and myself are very committed to the project if we can certainly cross some of these thresholds. You were spot on with the 3,000 gallons. That was an estimate for the whole project, all buildings that would ever come to be in light. It wasn't intended to be 3,000 per building. There are similar comps that I ran through other towns and their wastewater treatment facilities, and very, very prominent restaurants, much more than I would be doing here, fall in under half of that volume on a comp for daily discharge. So there are restaurants in our area that do 7-day-a-week service, very, very well orchestrated and do quite a bit of business. And they're putting out in the range of 1,300 to 1,500 gallons a day. So therefore, I'm just giving you those numbers that I personally found in comps equal to what we're looking to do there. That leaves us room. Okay, so the 3,000 gallons to put the rest was really, the thought was in conjunction of the whole project. The flow meter is a fantastic idea. I thought that was very honorable, and it gives the ability for you guys to control it. I also think that the overage is spot on, that it should be a monetary thing. If my only goal is to be over and pay you the premium, because then I'm doing very well on the other side of the project, right? So those are all valid and really reasonable things that should be addressed. To Mr. Potter's point, some of the difficulties become that I am not through the process, guys, and I'm appreciative of everything that we've gotten to get to here, but Al was spot on. I still have all the zoning issues, all of the ZBA. I don't just fit in the criteria of the vineyard and or their such. The project is certainly going to be ag-related. I know we talk about our venue and their such, but my goal there is to have that market I talked about a few months back, where actually I find a desperate need for local sourcing, all right? It's as simple as local sourcing, guys. I have a lot of friends in restaurant businesses. I'm not personally the guy that does food service, but they all say to me from the farm perspective, Andy, it's very difficult to find your product. I have to call Farmer Fred after 6 because he's hanging, or before 5:30 before he goes out to do his thing. So the farm to table from the restaurant perspective is very difficult to attain. So I found a need that, we should have sourcing. We should have anybody in Connecticut growing products or farm-related activities in an area that can be sourced easily. And so that is an ultimate goal. Yes, it's a 2-step process. It's a 2-phase project, and it's going to take 5 years. There's a lot of work to be done there, and I'm going to spend a lot of money on the project. It's not a short run. This is a long-term project that I'm committed to doing because we invest in our town, and this is the right place to do it. We are an ag-related town. There is not a lot of businesses looking to move here. So from the tax perspective, guys, it generates tax. It's not a residential thing. The only thing I need from you is the ability to build out the project, have subcommittees supportive of it, EDC go on forth. And again, like you said, if we go overage, charge it. If we put the parameters in place, but let's be business friendly again and just try and move it forward. I know that sounds like the old song, but it isn't that easy to get through the process, and I still have a lot of hurdles ahead, Al, as you noted. So this is just one step. Let's get through this one, and then we'll worry about the next one in a couple of weeks. Any questions? I'm willing to answer anybody, public or not. Thanks.
Thanks.
I mean, to his point, every time we have to modify wording, and Kurt's got to go back to the drawing board per se, it's another 2 weeks, in this case, probably at least a month before we revisit this item. And, I just don't want people's projects to be drawn on endlessly because of these little technicalities is all. I mean, they're appropriate, but we got to find a way of expediting it and, making sure that people's projects can stay on track is all.
So I didn't want to say anything, but now I have to. So,
I forgot you were there, Al.
that's right, I was trying to be quiet because we have a long agenda. But I want to be, after, and Cliff and I agree to disagree sometimes. So Kurt, correct me if I'm wrong. When Andy first came in here and started this, Kurt looked at the capacity, and he looked at everybody who had the right to tie into it. And what did he do? He came back and said, you know what, guys? If everybody ties in, we have no capacity, or very little. Is that about right, Kurt? Okay, so to everybody in town watching this, to Cliff, okay? Could have very simply said, there's no capacity. You can't tie in, and neither can anybody else. We didn't do that. We got very creative, and we said, and we looked at it harder, and we said, you know what? If we take the last 20 years, the people who haven't tied in, who have the right to tie in, probably don't have a septic problem. So maybe they're not going to tie in for another 20 years, or maybe another 30 years. So at least from where I was coming from, and I think the rest of us too was, you know what? If we have so much business up there in 30, 40, 50 years, run another sewer line, it's somebody else's problem. So we've tried very hard to make this happen. And I just don't want a few comments by people that maybe didn't realize how much we're stretching the envelope here to make this happen. We really did. So, that's all I have to say.
Any other question or comment? Cliff's got a rejoinder.
I totally agree with Al, because, right, you guys did come back 3 or 4 times in an effort to not make it harder for them, but make it easier. We agree on that. And that's what I'm trying to say, is the way we gotta keep going.
We're trying to get to where we can allow it.
Yeah, no, and
Okay.
that's good. I mean, because, and again, I just sat through a lot of, I won't go there.
Yeah.
It just, the way that went was not pretty.
Mhm.
But the person wasn't, well, he's not pretty either, but we won't go there. But again, you guys, like you say, you could have shut the door, walked away, but you realize this man's gonna stay in town. Just like you, Al. You-
We all think that this is like the last best hope for the mill
Well,
pond.
you went out on a limb or on a ledge and had the blast, but you're trying to invest in the town as a businessman.
right.
Anthony, you know, so this is what I say, that you guys sometimes, and I got in George's face last month about being too legal. You have to be looking further ahead to what's good for the town.
Well,
I
This is
apologize again, Cliff, for trying to follow the law.
No, that's okay.
No, but-
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Cliff,
He's
if
he's
I-
being snarky, Cliff.
Okay,
Cliff, if I
All
may
right.
though.
but
let
I
me-
agree.
Let me just
We're all
add-
trying to make it happen.
Let me just
Yeah.
add to your point, though, of looking into the future, is the reason why we are jammed up with the capacity thing is because a long time ago, people did not look into the future, and in putting this smaller diameter line in, restricted what we could do up in that end of
But Al
town.
just-
And that is the problem.
But
Al
Al-
had no
but-
problem.
You got a fix right there. Al says, if there's enough demand, you put another line on top
Oh, yeah,
of it.
that's fine, because we have $100 million to do that.
No, but you do the adjustments as it calls for.
But my
You
point
work-
is, though, it's
yeah.
important that we look into the future and we take a global perspective, because again, the capacity is not an issue down here.
Yeah.
And Al had not an issue connecting.
Yeah.
Andy does, because
Yeah.
they
Location.
restricted,
Oh, I understand that.
they hindered the town from moving into the future with that
But look at the
line.
study you did. You proved that there's not gonna be a lot of growth probably
It's
up
still,
there.
well, it's not about growth, it's about practicality. It's about practicality
Yeah.
with septics, it's about up in the northern end of town, whether it's gonna cost them $100,000 to dig 40 feet down to access it,
Okay.
it's not gonna do it.
No, I think we're
We
all
gotta
on the
move
same
on,
page.
but-
And I mean, granted, this town has done fantastic. You've been punished by the governor. And I mean, don't give up. You're doing good things. Keep doing good things, and things will happen. I'm fully in agreement with that, what Al says. Thank you.
So Dan, just could you open the door? So we're gonna go back to 1989 when this was being debated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, much younger, but I looked the same, so. I came to my first council meeting in 1989, and what was on the table but the White Hollow sewer thing? So I came in at, 32 years old, and I'm like, what are you, nuts? You're gonna dig up Route 17 and put an 8 or 10-inch pipe in? Let's
Right.
put an 18-inch
Right.
pipe in, okay?
Right.
Those are comments. We could have Lisa look up the minutes, and
No, I believe you.
it didn't happen. So,
And see, now,
but anyway,
this is where we're at.
here we are, and thank God we're out from under that
Right.
restriction.
Right.
So the state's not involved.
Any further comment?
Not for me.
Either the size of the pipe, the length, capacity?
What goes through it?
All right, hearing no further comment, I'm going to close this public hearing at 8:10 on October 17, and move back to the regular agenda, which is resignations and appointments.
Oh my God, is that, what page is that, Rose?
7A, resignation of Tanya
30,
McCoskey from the Housing
33.
Authority.
Yeah, we're back to page 33.
Have we concluded we don't have to vote on resignations?
Correct.
just
Yes.
accept-
Yes.
Right, it's just for,
Just for information.
All right. And next item then, corrected term for Bill Savastano to correct his term to end at 12/31/2018. Somebody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
There we go.
All right, moved by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Counselor Miller. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unfinished business, discussion and action, approval of the proposed ordinance 2017-1. It indicates it's tabled until November. I assume that means November 2017?
Yes.
All right, so we're not acting on that this evening. Moving on to item B, review of purchasing ordinance, also tabled until November.
Correct.
Item C, preliminary park concept and cost estimates, 1599 Foxen Road. Indicates just tabled, but does not give me a date. What does that mean?
True, again, I think that issue
Well,
also.
we have our hearing
after
next,
the-
or we have the public
We're having a
hearing
hearing
On the
next
25th.
the 25th, next Wednesday,
Right.
Okay.
which is at the auditorium at 7
7
PM?
o'clock. 7 p.m.
Okay.
Then we will go to item D, review of the NBPD renovation project.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the meeting last week, the October 10th meeting, the joint meeting with the Police Commission, and I think in question raised was the issue whether or not the RFP could stand as a request for qualifications and proposal for services. So I put together a review of that in terms of the ordinance that speaks to that issue, that it would be allowable for us to continue, or the council to choose Silver Petroselli as the low bid, if you choose to, and to move forward with him in pursuing whatever you want to pursue with the project, and whatever scope, I guess, is the issue, and budget for that project.
So the scope of this, the bid, just from my understanding, is that it's a study to go in and tell us everything that we need to do to the police department based on the list we gave them of our renovations that we want to do. It does not include any architectural drawings, any design, nothing like that. It's just, this cost is for a study for $20,000, roughly.
Right, I think the issue, right, I think the
I know there was
issue raised was the
provisions in there.
construction, right. And
Right,
whether or not
there's
you
a
got the
provision in there
construction
that,
drawings. Does
but
not
that's an
include-
additional fee.
It would be an additional fee, correct.
So then they're not the low bidder.
They are
Yeah.
for this, they are for this portion of it, if that's,
I think the question is, to clarify, is it for drawings?
No.
No.
It's not. That's
No.
the problem then.
And,
Yeah.
and is not that what we directed
Right,
and
that's the
voted for the RFP? Because I failed to see what someone who responds to this RFP, should we award it, is going to give us beyond what we were already given by DTC, which we looked at and had a nice presentation on. I think the RFP was not written to reflect what the council voted on, unless I'm incorrect, certainly what I thought we were voting on.
I thought we were gonna go to drawings also, because we
Yeah.
studied it to death, and we have a
Absolutely.
list of what we want done, and so it was architectural drawings
I-
based on our,
Because the DTC really gave us a study. The next step would be the
Right.
drawings, and we specified which areas.
I mean, this is really frustrating to me, because it looks like we're not moving forward, and we're factually not moving forward. We're trying to move forward, but we're not getting what we need, and we're looking to spend a good bit of money to get what we already have. So I think there's a mistake that was made here on this RFP.
The one thing I gleaned last week from our meeting, though, was it was something of a moving target. Like Al came up with some other ideas that everybody thought was a good idea to look at. And it was stuff that we hadn't considered before, which was an extension of the building out back of the existing building. And I don't think that's something we had even considered previously. So does that, I'm neither an engineer nor an architect. Does that require a study, or do you just say, yeah, that's a good idea, go do drawings of that?
So, when, when we're all there, and I agree with everybody here. I thought we had said, okay, take that DTC thing and go to bid. And so, again, and I think that is one of the reasons that we're gonna be looking to review all the RFPs, so that we, they come to us before they go out, and we can say, hey, that's perfect, that's what we wanted, or that's not what we wanted. So unfortunately, that ship sailed. So after our meeting, talking about it, I was right there with you, George. I think, this is wrong. We shouldn't be studying this anymore. So I actually know, I know and used, the site engineer, and he got me in touch with, the, architect's office, and I talked to them about it, and I think at the very least, we need somebody to go in there and tell us what is, because if we either go out the end or go out the back, and in my mind, I was thinking, okay, we just leave this thing alone. And they brought up a good point. We can't, because once we go to add on to it, we have to bring it up to code. So I think at the very least, we need someone to go in there, because DTC's was not, 100% clear on what is legal and what's not in there. And we're gonna have to put an elevator in. We can't get around that anymore, but by adding on to it. And what I was told is the elevator wouldn't go in the new building if we go south or west. It would go back down towards the beginning of the building, somewhere down there. So we need the architects to go in there and tell us exactly what we have to fix. And, I mean, it's a mess. We all saw that. It's these hallways that, none of them are a legal hallway. I mean, I don't know how much we have to remodel in there, but we can't just add on without being sure what we have to do.
Somebody has to look very careful
Someone
at
has
that
to
whole
look
basement.
very
that
close at the basement.
I mean, when he was.
Again, the upstairs, I don't.
When he was talking about the stuff for the 911, there's no room to put, the equipment was
Right.
outside that area. There's
It
no
was in a
place to
hallway.
put it. It's in the hallway.
I mean, what a haunted house you could make
Oh.
down there. I mean, it's like we're wandering around in between files and all of a sudden there's somebody's office.
Right.
And then that one area in the middle, they use for about 20 different things. They'll have to.
See, my concern is that also, within that building, we go to add space, but what about all the old infrastructure we're gonna have to touch at the same time? And that definitely
That's where we
moves
need the study.
Right, that's where that moves the cost. I mean,
Right.
that'll affect greatly what we gotta have
Right.
to spend. It's not just wood.
Because we could get them square footage pretty cheap.
Yeah, but,
Fixing that mess that's there.
the wires
And I don't
and the
know how much of it we have
HVAC
to-
and all the.
I think we need a
So
different
I
RFP.
don't know what we
Well,
do.
I disagree. I think the RFP and the language there, and Bill Silver obviously said the same thing. He read it, thought it was well-written, and he understood that it would be, if you were to engage him, you're talking about finishing the analysis, the conceptual drawings and cost estimates in terms of the first phase, in terms of the scope and size of what you want to do, and you even threw out the number that maybe we got to back into the number. Right, you got to throw out the number. I think this contract gets him, or if you approve it, engages that firm to do that for you, but just short of doing the constructural design, but it gives you the flexibility that says in here. It says subject to the final steps and fees that you get to negotiate that piece as well. That would be an added cost to get you through the construction documents. But I think this is written the way to go in phases to do what you need to do to get your hands around just what Al was just saying, and the tour and everything that you want to look at. I think this document and this RFP gives you that ability to work with the architect in that first phase, and then decide if you're going to work with him or engage him in the second phase and pay him to get the construction design and documents done. That's the way I see it, and I think Bill clearly understood that, and I don't think he said anything contrary to that.
So,
No, he didn't. I mean, because we asked that question.
Right, yeah, so I think he's on board. I think I think he gets it, because obviously he walked through, he was there and he built the addition. Their firm was responsible and involved in doing that addition. So, I think you can move, I would recommend you could move forward with this, and then we bring the architect in and his team and begin to go through the process and outline the process. And I believe there's capacity or funding to do both. I mean, within the allocation that we have under the capital project for the,
So is it out of that $100,000, we can do drawings and the first phase here, and then go to drawings if we have to?
Assuming it's less than 100,000.
Right, okay.
Where'd that money, where? That was a state grant identified, I think it was 14, 15, put $100,000 aside for a review of the various buildings around town.
It's been in the capital budget for a couple of years.
I mean, I don't know what the second phase in terms of the construction documents would be, but this'll get you started, and then you can negotiate with them to finish off the second phase.
Okay.
Do we wanna do this motion?
Well,
Well,
they can't exceed 22,000,
Right.
right?
Right, well,
Right.
they just
For
have.
that phase.
For that,
Right.
right.
But I think what all of us were wondering is if, can they review what has to be fixed for less than that? And if we told them to do, say we said, okay, we're gonna spend $1 million on an addition, and what else do we have to do to the building? Is that $10,000 worth of a study? So then if that's the case, can we still use them on this RFP? Now, he seemed to say we could. Like, we could bring him in and tell him, you know what? Because remember, he started saying, oh, I'm gonna review this, and maybe I'm gonna come back and tell you to knock the building down. None of us want to knock the building down. I mean, even if it's the best thing to do, we can't do that. There's too much square footage there already.
Yeah, there's a lot of extra.
Just want to clarify, it was a 13-14 capital plan, not 14.
Thank you.
So, do we
Okay.
wanna move forward?
I think we should move
All
forward,
right,
I guess.
I'm gonna make the motion. The North Branford Town Council hereby approves the proposal submitted by Silver Petroselli and Associates for architectural and engineering services for the North Branford Police Department renovation and expansion project RFQP number 3/2/16/17, and authorizes the town manager to execute any and all necessary documents for the award of the services.
Second.
All right, motion by Counselor Diamond, seconded by Counselor Arman. Any further discussion?
I would just include the funding source in your motion.
Okay,
The 13-14 capital improvement plan facility study.
from the 13-14
Should we-
facility study.
Should
I've
we
made
say
that
that
before.
before they start, they come in and talk to us?
Yes,
It's not in there,
absolutely.
so.
Marie, do we need to say that, but before, so we wanna go forward with them, but before they start, they come in and talk to us?
Okay.
And kinda explain,
Right,
All right,
what we're getting
before
for our money.
beginning the project, the
Yeah.
architectural
And then we can have
and
police
engineering
commission.
firm must come in and have a discussion with the town council.
okay.
That further consultation will,
Yeah, then we
Okay.
can have the police commission and so.
And the police commission.
Yeah, police.
Did you get that? Got it. Okay.
And before
Any
you,
further discussion?
before you vote on that, I just want to, would that be a special, you want that as a separate special meeting or the first meeting in December? Because I don't think you want it for the November 14th.
I don't think it has to be a special meeting.
No, just regular December
Just
meeting?
make them part of the agenda
Okay,
after November.
yeah, the first meeting in December.
The only meeting in
It's
December.
the
I mean,
next,
perhaps we can meet with them at 6.
that's gonna be the next council's headache anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So I would propose that we meet with them at 6, is that possible? Or necessary?
No, we're saying they can. be
No,
part of
just
the
wrap it
agenda.
into the regular meeting on
Okay.
December, first meeting in December.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
All right.
I think,
And-
I'm sorry, I think it might be helpful for Michelle to do a roll call vote for,
Roll call, sorry.
It goes much faster the other way.
I like it the other way.
I like your way, Joe.
No rules.
Go ahead, Michelle. I didn't want to steal your thunder. Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Arman?
Yes.
Counselor Candelora?
Yes.
Counselor Diamond?
Yes.
Counselor Meese?
Yes.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Okay, review of bid specifications, NBIS roof project, mechanical and control items, HVAC.
Yeah, I have a proposed packet in there for you in terms of a bid specs that we've been working on with the Bill Chody and school side, and this is in a draft form, so if there's, anything that you think we need to tweak on that, certainly welcome your comments.
Well, I thought the company that put the system in was fixing it. So-
We're at, there's two companies, right? Horizon, that does the engineering and programming, and now has remote access for us, is going to be part of the walkthrough with companies that need to now fix the mechanical and control side of all the units that are up on the rooftops. Those things like the energy wheels and dampers and things of that nature. That's why that list of 23, 26 items.
Right, there's the,
Yeah, that's what we're hiring out for a company to do in consultation with ABS, which is the second control firm that we're gonna bid this out with their oversight and along with Horizon.
so to fix all of it, obviously, is going to be more than the $7,500 bid.
Yes.
Okay,
We anticipate, yes.
I'm just looking at the draft. Okay, so the recommissioning part of it, which was roughly 10.8,
Yeah.
that is totally separate from this.
Right, this is sort of the nuts and bolts, kind of the physical, fixing the parts, if you will. Replacing parts, fixing parts. So we've mandated a walkthrough with the company, and as I said, Horizon will be on site with Bill Chody. I won't be here for that, I'll probably send Michelle as well, but I think Bill and Jonathan Freed from Horizon can certainly handle that walkthrough.
Under the required qualifications, what do we mean with the contractor must have at least 3 of experience in the field?
3 years, as it should say?
It doesn't say that.
Yes, thank you.
Was the answer
So,
here?
I'd like to
Yes.
meet the guy that can work 3 years in the field and understand that system.
And it's,
I would almost say, let's have 25 years of experience, but, 3 years seems awful young.
yeah, well, we were looking at.
The problem we had is that system was smarter than anybody we had working on it, so this is the wrong, 3 years of experience, I don't think gets us there.
We had talked about 5 to 7, and then pulled it back, not wanting to limit the field, but also specifying that it have to be commercial and or school experience, not just, you have to be able to, and hopefully, what we're looking for is the units are trained units
Right.
there as
I
well.
saw
So,
that, go on, train, certified.
So, but yeah, we can change that to 5.
I
or
think
7 or 10.
3 is ridiculously low.
What would you recommend?
At least
5.
At least 5.
Yeah, okay.
And then looking through this, so Horizon Engineering was the one that was working with us to recommission it?
Yeah, on the software side.
And who is, it says automated building systems, they oversee the system?
Well, ABS, I think, was the contractor that oversaw and installed the units, I believe.
Installed,
So they installed the whole system, the HVAC
Like,
system that we're fixing?
when it was built, or?
When it was built, my understanding is, yeah. So they had, train mechanicals, all of the, different component parts, all of the equipment that is sitting on the roof. And Horizon tied it in with the software. Sort of like a,
So this,
like a
this
computer
wording,
analogy.
Automated Building Systems is the firm who oversees the system, and they must be consulted with throughout the project. It is noted that there are issues associated with the mechanical controls and balancing on the air side. Automated Building Systems, a firm who oversees the system.
Is that ongoing?
Yeah, I mean, so they're paid to monitor it? Aren't they part of the problem then?
You know, right?
No,
That's-
I don't, I mean, Bill had put that part in, and I believe that they're,
Or were they fixing it for Horizon?
It's gotta be in here.
Horizon was coordinating with ABS, but I don't think ABS has actually been on site. And I think he just wanted whoever was going in to have consultation with ABS.
So they know
confirm
this, so,
that
are-
ABS knows the system.
so
in and
are
out.
they eligible to bid on it also?
That's a good question. I think they, we were trying to carve them out, looking for them as consultant to someone else to fix that. And I think that's the way Bill wrote it. I believe that's what his intent was. Just like we're having Horizon. I'm not sure that's the right approach, but that's the way he had suggested that system, this language. I think in the past, it hasn't been ABS, I don't think has been on site, they've gone to Commercial Air or some other
Correct.
company to fix the, little things that were cropping up that well, I guess they were just trying to put out fires, so to speak, as something cropped up.
So Horizon is still, like it says, upon completion, all repairs are to be reviewed in person by the contractor with Horizon Engineering Associates. So Horizon Engineering, I like them. They seem to have found a lot of things wrong over there. So why can't they be like the one that's in charge of, that's watching, like is on our side?
They will be, Horizon will be. Yeah, and they're gonna be, and they've agreed
doesn't say
to
that.
be part of the walkthrough and be there, present to answer any questions that the companies may have when they do the walkthrough. And they'll be the ones that, obviously are answering questions with respect, and that's how the list was derived from engineering.
Mhm.
To say that, in his system, Jonathan's saying, listen, this energy wheel, flywheel isn't working,
Right.
this damper isn't closing, and so forth.
Right, so I think, Al, your point is, why would it be ABS is the firm that oversees? You would
Right,
rather
I
have
think I'd rather
Horizon.
have Verizon overseeing, but I don't know, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I think we only need one engineering firm to oversee it. But, I mean, it does say at the end that Horizon has to walk through it.
But what if there's a problem?
Could we put that the work, instead of being reviewed, that the work is approved by Horizon Engineering?
Well, that's right.
All right.
Sometimes when the light hits the thing.
What do you think of that, Pat? It's better than reviewed, right?
Well, but then I think we have to take the upon completion, because you don't want them to approve it after it's completed.
Yeah.
Well,
Not complete.
Or all
in other words, the other company wouldn't get paid until
Right.
Horizon approves what they did.
He won't release their bond.
So you wanna restate that, Al?
I'm making it up as I go.
Yeah, but it does. I think it's good.
Upon completion,
All repairs are being approved?
all repairs are to be approved
Approved.
by Horizon Engineering. Then that way, that'll make whoever gets it realize that they better be talking to Horizon Engineering.
Right.
I mean, those guys were good. They came in there and told us everything we've done wrong since the school was
Right.
commissioned.
But are we asking for some controversy here? If we've got Verizon Engineering having to approve it, and we got this automated building systems overseeing it, what happens if one
Yeah,
says A
I'm-
and the other says B?
I'm kind of leaning towards
Having
It's
getting
more of
rid
the,
of
automated billing
automated
system.
building. I'm not,
Is
but
it-
I
is
don't
this
want to do that without talking to
Information from
Bill.
Bill Chody that had it drawn this way,
Yeah,
involving both
so he must know.
the engineer and automated building systems?
right, and I think the key is it's just that they're going to be consulted throughout the process, that they're not going to have to approve anything, but that that we make them available or make them, put them in contact with.
So
the
Verizon
local-
has the trump card. What they say is the final decision.
Exactly, I think that, and that's where we want to be, because it's a great, like Al said, great relationship with Verizon, they
All
found
right,
a lot
so
of
if we
things.
change it, just
That's
clarify
what
that, make sure Bill is on board with that
46, 47, all that.
before the thing goes out.
What if we said that upon completion, even move that little paragraph, upon completion, all repairs are to be reviewed and approved by Horizon Engineering and Automated Building Systems. Since the automated building systems must be the ones that they use day to day to take
Well, I
care of
was
it.
thinking-
Because then it's too late.
Cause
Right, that's
Horizon's
my
not,
point.
like, they came in and troubleshot, but they're not our day-to-day,
No, they're not in
they're not the
business of
guys that are
fixing.
running this.
Right, they're not the hardware side of
But
fixing
it was saying,
parts.
I think I agree with Rose, if it says upon completion, then isn't it too late? Should not be taken out of there? You just say all repairs should be
Prior
reviewed
to
and
completion,
approved?
then, right?
No,
Well, it's
because,
gotta be completed in
yeah,
order for
because if you're the
Verizon.
guy inspecting it, you can't, in the world of construction, you can't go in there and say, hey, you guys are doing that wrong, because their answer is, I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay.
So, it's paid,
But what if it's done all
you're
wrong?
not getting paid until these guys approve it.
Okay, so if you've done it all wrong, you have to go
Back
back.
and fix it.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
right.
Okay,
All
In
right.
other words, if it's not approved by Horizon,
They're bond. They have-
you're not getting paid.
Right. And there is a bond too, so.
So then it's gonna be their cost and their responsibility if
Right.
they did it.
Mhm.
It's not approved.
Because if you look and see the work they already repaired in there, a lot of it was like closing a door, because opening
No, I
doors
just-
would, make the system not balance. I mean, these guys troubleshot everything throughout the whole, and they fixed as much as they could.
I mean, this is up and running, right? So you could run these suggestions by Bill.
well, they have to get it, you wanna send it out to bid is what.
Yeah, we'd like to get it out on the street, right, so to speak.
So it is working somewhat? I mean, obviously, because the air's been on and stuff like that in the
Yeah.
building.
Right, it's just not at full capacity.
Yeah, it worked awesome.
but
It didn't rain once the Horizon came in, it stopped raining in the band room.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
Should we be more specific with the start and the complete date instead of saying 30 days?
So again, how do we make modifications to this
Well, we can make it right now. We can make them
It
tonight.
must be complete within 30 days.
and have Bill review them, right? And then,
Well, you can always
How do you work on it?
otherwise-
approve it with contingent upon approval.
Okay.
I mean, that,
Just so it doesn't sit for a month, that's all I'm saying.
And Mike, do we have a time of year that we should be working on this? Like, did they say winter is okay to work on it, or is it better to do it?
Yeah, I asked Bill that. I mean, it's one of those things where, like anything else, if it were another school and it fails, they're trained to be up there in all kinds of weather to fix things. If the,
Mhm.
mechanical system unit goes down, somebody goes up on the roof. I mean, yeah, if there's 2 feet of snow up there, yeah, they're not going up
Well, that's
until
not
it's
even-
clear. But I
I'm
think that's why
more
the sooner the
concerned
better.
with, the quality of the work and getting the system balanced and whatnot, during the winter.
Right.
But it sounds like with the computer system.
unless you
they
want,
can do it.
you know what, Marie, what if we said, final payment is contingent upon approval of Horizon Engineering? then that way we're perfectly clear
I like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
that we're good with that.
So that sentence, upon completion, all repairs are to be reviewed in person by the contractor with Horizon Engineering Associates. You want it to say, all, final payment is contingent upon all repairs being reviewed and approved.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
By Horizon Engineering.
Yeah.
And then you can leave the automated building, you know, if Bill must, he must have a relationship with them on the daily operations, so just leave them alone, you know? I mean, those Horizon guys, they were tough, you know, I mean, they came in there and, you know.
Okay, so
So it's final.
that's one change there, and then the other change is the 3
Five-
years to
5
5 years.
Yep. So I think if I caught it right, you were saying that paragraph should read, final payment is contingent upon all repairs being reviewed and approved by Horizon Engineering.
Well, reviewed and
And
approved
approved.
in person.
Right, right.
Yeah, right.
I'll continue that language.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
All right, anybody care to make the motion then?
Sure, I will. The North Branford Town Council hereby approves the bid specifications as amended for the NBIS roof project HVAC system and moves to place it out to bid.
Second.
All right, motion by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Counselor Arman. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Arman,
Yes.
Counselor Candelora,
Yes.
Counselor Diamond.
Yes.
Counselor Meese.
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
All right, the next item on the agenda is draft service realtor, I assume contract for various town properties, 191 Forest Road, Auger House, and 1675 Foxen Road.
Yeah, so you have again, a draft in front of you that tries to address those properties for, I guess, doing something with those properties.
Okay, so have we cleared up the issue with 1675 Foxen Road because there is a cemetery connected to the property? Can we sell it? Can you split it from the cemetery and sell it? Or could we only lease that property? Because that has been one of the issues all along, is the cemetery piece, and is the town able to sell the property?
I don't know that we've had a final legal opinion on that. I
So-
don't recall seeing anything.
Okay.
It seemed to me we would cut off the cemetery. That is maintained by the
Yeah,
town.
but I don't know, the question was, we didn't know how the deed or the land, when it was, like, do they have to stay together?
Why?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long the town has had that, or where it came from. That was the question.
That cemetery looks like it's 17th, 18th century.
Right, so when the property, I don't know how the town got that the building part of it. That was always the question prior to this, is if it was able to be split. As, like, when we got the Jerome Harrison property, it always had to maintain to be a school. Like, we couldn't just sell the property, because that's the way when the town got the property, that's the way it was stated. So that's why a new school was built on the property. So that was a question when we talked about this years ago, is the cemetery.
If there's a land restriction, the only way you're gonna know is if somebody goes back in the ancient records and tries to decipher them.
But can a cemetery be sold?
I can't imagine we would want to.
Yeah, I don't know who would want to buy it.
You talk about being mercenaries.
So I mean, we might want to just change the language in this RFP that it's for lease and not necessarily for sale.
The whole
For-
property.
Correct. Unless we're okay with, we just split it, and I mean, I don't know the history on that property. But I just know that that was a question from years ago when we talked about it, was they had to look to see once if there were any restrictions.
Well, any sale is gonna be subject to a clear title, and it's gonna be incumbent upon the buyer to figure that out. If there's an objection, they're gonna come back and say, we can't buy this, it's a cemetery, it's gotta be maintained as a cemetery. We're not going out there and cutting the grass, so we want out of this. If it actually is sold, and we split the cemetery off, and as a result, there is some question regarding a land restriction, it's really gonna be the buyer's headache at that point. So I would think it'd be incumbent upon them to do their homework and figure that out.
Or you could just get a title search done for a few $100s, and you'll know before you decide.
I'm guessing this is not just a run-of-the-mill title search. That restriction, if it exists, probably goes back to God only knows when.
Yeah, but you don't wanna be on the hook either, because if you try and sell it, and then it comes back where you can't get clear title, then the real estate agent, everybody who's put all the work into it is for naught, when you can find out by spending some money before you decide what you wanna do with it. So nobody has to go crazy and waste a lot of time and energy to do it. So spend the money.
And this is an
do
RFP to
a
go
title
out.
search.
Right, I mean, that's, before we send it out, I just,
Well, there's people out there who are professional, that's all they do. There's lawyers out there, all they do is title searches, nothing else. So I know I use them in my practice, and, for, several $100s. But the bottom line is, this is something that's important. Before you put it out to bid, or before you give it to a real estate agent, they're gonna wanna know, because they're gonna put a lot of work into it, trying to show it, and then if they can't get clear title or warranty deed, nobody's gonna buy it. So I suggest you do that first.
well, and the other one is 298 Forest Road, which is the Auger House. Are we looking to sell that? Or just lease it?
Is that the one where they said they want a dentist to go in, or?
Well, I mean, they're looking at commercial, not to
Not to
do,
rent it
to
a
do
home.
residential
Right.
rental on it. But, it's there with the barns and the dog park and everything else. Are we looking to sell it or just to lease it?
I would have thought it was just lease.
Well,
You know,
so then that
so
language needs to be
Yeah.
changed.
I think that that's the right thing to do, but I was concerned, this is for a year. This RFP is seeking services for a year, and I would hope that it's not limited to only these 3 town properties, that we could have other properties looked at if time goes on, and other properties are identified, and not have to go through this process. The whole point was establishing a relationship with the Realtor to look at these various properties that we have and see what's the best possible solution for us and for the town.
So is there some way it can be worded so that we're not limited just to these 3 properties? Since it's gonna be for a year.
These are just examples
Yeah, these are just examples.
of the properties that we may be wanting to look at. There's no guarantee that these are the properties we're gonna look at, or limited to these.
Well, it
We
is,
have a
it
public
is if
hearing.
this is the way the
Right,
RFP is
yeah.
That's the
written.
way this is written.
Yeah, so we gotta modify that.
Yeah, so you want the flexibility to say that in any other properties that the town may
We might
decide
wanna
to-
add another property or
Right.
2
Or
properties
just,
or
why
something.
have
just
any
what?
properties listed at all? I mean, just say, we have property that we're gonna wanna look at marketing perhaps, or evaluating, and we need the services.
It's gonna be tough to probably get anybody to just let them know what they're gonna be selling, or possibly selling.
You're right, whatever.
Well, who's the contract with? Is the contract with the town council, or is the contract with the town manager?
With the town.
Well,
Real estate
we
agent,
all-
they have to sign a contract.
Well, we authorize the town manager, the council, but the council is the one that would approve and do it to the town manager, that he has the authority granted by us.
Okay.
So where do we stand?
So I would support that, just minus the property, naming the property.
So if that can be rewritten, I think that will go directly to what we're trying to get to.
Is there a motion?
There is a motion.
So
Should we read a motion as amended?
How do we amend?
Just say as amended, take out the name, take out the properties that we mentioned here. And
Just services to address town properties.
Right.
period.
Okay, so read it that way.
The North Branford Town Council hereby approves the bid specification RFP for Realtor services and moves to place these services out to bid.
Well, that doesn't,
That
that doesn't correct our problem.
As,
What's the amendment to the RFP?
okay, as amended, and the amendment is removing the wording Auger House, 298 Forest Road, former senior center, 1675 Foxen Road, and 191 Forest Road. So we're removing those properties.
Then you have to put something in there like town.
Could we
Property.
and put various town-owned properties designated by the town council?
There you go.
This way, the town council will always be the one in charge of what properties the real
Or
estate
we're gonna
agent.
evaluate.
That's right.
Right.
So you just put various town-owned properties designated by the town council, the city town council.
So as amended.
So what are we paying the guy?
Well, that's what we want them to do. They come back with proposals to us. So that second paragraph.
That's a good point, actually, right.
Is going to, we're just gonna take out all the properties listed and insert what Counselor Mace said about various town properties.
I missed the last meeting, which I'm sure this was discussed at, but what are we accomplishing? Once we take out specific properties, what are we saying? We're looking for a Realtor that's gonna be available to consult with us about listing
That's what I
for
was
sale
saying.
or possible lease any
Right.
town properties.
Right, well, we have a
Isn't it
whole-
appropriate to decide to sell or lease a specific
Exactly.
property and then go out and look for a Realtor?
Yeah. Like, we have a public hearing, right, on 1599,
Yeah.
so maybe we should wait until that
Well,
public.
So I don't
What
really know
happened
what we're
last
accomplishing
meeting?
here.
What happened last meeting is we were discussing 191 Forest Road.
Yep.
And we were discussing the fact that it was very limited in the outreach to find a possible purchaser for the property. And that's why it only got advertised in local papers, and we ended up with only one respondent, and that respondent did not give us a bid that met our minimum. So in order to go back out and explore the possibility of sale of this very small property, I suggested that it go to a professional Realtor who had greater outreach and explore whether we could find a buyer for it at a price that was more favorable to the town.
Yeah, whatever the value.
It would seem to me that we would want to solicit proposals for that specific property. If I'm a Realtor, I'm gonna look at 191 Forest Road and probably say to myself, no thanks. I'm not interested in listing that, paying advertising costs for a property that doesn't meet zoning. It's a parking lot or a picnic grove. It's never gonna sell.
My thinking was that, though, we would form some sort of agreement with a Realtor services that would be able to, negotiate, come to terms with the town as to what fees or what percentages we may be charged, just because we do have a lot of property in town that we're not doing anything with. That I think it would be appropriate to evaluate the value of these properties and what the marketing potential is. And so if they do sell a parcel of land that the town owns and has come to agreement that we want to sell it, and they sell it, what those fees will be, instead of each time trying to get a new Realtor involved. I mean, because this person could work with Carrie, we've already taken inventory of a tremendous amount of property and come up with what our best options are.
And
So that was my thought.
And surprisingly, just recently, there's been some feature articles in news media showing interest in very small very small houses, tiny houses.
Is that why you sent that article?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
I
yes.
thought you were parking that thing somewhere in town.
Absolutely.
Now, that was to drive George's point home from the last meeting.
And how timely was it? So, it may very well be, and that was featuring people right in the New Haven area. So, we don't necessarily know what's out there, but we know that what we did in order to move that property turned out to be rather unsatisfactory.
Well, and the other point was, George had also brought up the Auger House and what we were gonna do with it and everything, that was part of the discussion.
And we certainly need to do something with it, one way or another.
And the old senior center too.
Right, but I mean, I definitely
We have a lot
see
of property.
Joe's
That's the
point in that if it's just open-ended, I'm not so sure we're going to get viable candidate, that if we come up in 6 months, if we come up with some additional properties we want to sell, so we just put another RFP out listing that property.
But right now, you have a lot of town-owned property that's not generating any revenue, so if you don't do nothing, it just sits there.
Right,
At
but
least
so,
you
I
move
mean, we could start
forward
with these
to
three
do
pieces
something.
here, I mean, they're listed.
That's right.
You start with these three pieces, and
See what
6 months, yeah, 6 months from now, there's another piece of property that comes up or whatever, you just do another RFP. You can just do it, guide it right after this same one
And they work
on
on
there.
commission,
And if the realtor, if someone bids and gets this one, and if they're interested, they can just bid on the next one on there. It's,
That's fine, if that'll work, that's fine.
So maybe we have to try it then, see what happens.
right. I just think that we need to, for 298 Forest Road at least, take out the word sale, because I don't think we're looking to sell the Auger House, that would be a.
Our history on leasing it has been pretty bad.
Right, and Franny said he doesn't want to do residential, it would only be commercial, and in the other information that was sent here that Dave Ambrose sent, he had stated about, the condition of Auger House is less than desirable.
But that's where the amended motion comes in, where the town council will designate various town-owned properties to be designated with the realtor what to do with it, the sitting council at that time. So if the town council designates they want something leased or they want something sold, the town council will designate the town manager what to do.
Right.
So the way this is written, how much latitude do we have? So we have, proposal fee structure for sale of property. So the guy's gonna come in and tell us, I'll sell commercial property for 6%. And he's gonna lease property for 10%. So then somebody else comes in and says 7 and 11%. If the guy is well-known around the area, that's 7 and 11, and the other guy we've never heard from, or he just passed his real estate license test. I mean, I kind of agree with Joe on what are we accomplishing here? Because we're going to just get back some percentages, or we may get back, what are you people nuts? You're going to pay us to appraise your property and tell you what the value is. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm fine if you want to send it out. I'll vote to send it out. But I think we're going to get back a percentage of what I'll sell property for.
I guess I don't understand the question. If a real estate agent is saying, I take a 6% commission on this property, and they go out and they sell it for, we get a bid of $100,000, and we accept it, well, they're gonna get $6,000, and we're gonna get the $94,000. So where are we losing?
So I'm saying all right, so then you answered the question. We're gonna go with the lowest percentage guy to market our property.
I think right now
Okay,
you
so you
start
answered
out,
my question.
you start out with the real estate agents that come in and say what they're gonna do for us, and that's where you go. And you sign a 6-month contract or whatever it is, and if it doesn't move, you just say, okay, go to another real estate agent and see what happens. But right now, the town property's
But
not
see,
doing
right now, we're
anything.
not like interviewing these guys. I mean, like anyone who sells their house, they interview the real estate agent and all
Well,
this.
there's a
So
whole,
that's why this is
criteria
a-
that's
there is a
listed as.
criteria, but it still comes down to the percentage. So my question is, as a town, we have to take the lowest percentage. That's all I'm saying.
I
What,
thought I
for
read something in
services-
here,
for
though, that
services,
we
Al?
did not have to take.
There's all the evaluation criteria,
Right.
Al. And the fee and commission structure is only one small part of it.
And again, the point of this is
So
that.
it's all broken out in there. So really, that's only one small part of it, and it's actually equal to previous experience with the town of North Branford or sales in North Branford in terms of points.
I guess there's little to be lost by putting this out there.
Right.
I don't
Really
have a
lose
tremendous
anything.
amount of optimism that we're gonna get real positive
I'm
results.
not sure we
that are
gain
gonna be useful.
anything, but I don't think we lose anything.
And not only this, but every time, let's say we do start evaluating and moving property or doing something with property that's available, we don't wanna have to interview a new real estate broker each time either. I mean, you wanna develop a rapport and some sort of relationship.
Well,
with somebody.
that was my point, but Rose pointed out that we could just go with another RFP, and we may end up with the same person. But we really have to get off the dime here.
Yeah, I agree.
And try and do something to our benefit.
And it doesn't cost us anything to send out an RFP either.
What or was there a motion, or not yet? It was just a.
No one has made a motion yet.
Yeah, I just want to be
don't
clear
think.
on what language is in, what modifications.
There's language in here.
I thought Dan made the motion,
I
I
made the
amended
motion.
it.
I mean, that did happen.
Well, there was an amendment.
Michelle, you got it?
Yeah, but the amendment was to take out the
Yeah.
property, the
Name.
specific properties
take 'em out.
listed,
Right.
and just say, like, anything, and then Joe, that's where the discussion went, where Joe said about,
And the discussion was to put the properties back in, but to take out the sale aspect of
Auger House.
Auger House and probably of the
So
Fox
do you
and
think
Road
that we should have the properties listed in this RFP? or should
for
it just be
the
a general RFP?
cemetery.
I agree.
I think that should be moved to a lease.
Right.
For sale, at least.
Again, my motion, I think, not listing the specific properties or what we're gonna do with them is what I would like to see. So we can, have somebody come in again, see what kind of commission they're gonna charge and what they can do for us. And then we can come up, then we can, evaluate, come up with different properties to be evaluated.
And we have two different motions.
well, no, the motion that was on the floor and amended was, as Dan just said, because
So I stand
Vincent
by that motion.
took out the property, had the wording that any town, so that's the motion that's on the floor.
Right.
Even though there was discussion otherwise, but that's still the motion that's on the floor, it hasn't changed.
Right. If Michelle has it all. She said she has it, okay.
So, let's see if this one passes.
All right, who made the motion?
Dan,
And it was seconded by,
I'll second it and amend it.
okay, we got a motion by Counselor Dan Harmon, seconded by Counselor Mace. Any further discussion?
And that was to-
Roll call?
Deputy Mayor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
yes.
Counselor Arman,
Yes.
Counselor Candelora,
I just wanted to be clear, you pulled what the property's out?
Yes.
And you're not doing the value yet?
Right.
Basically, we're just RFP.
Just for services.
Services, okay.
Yep.
All right, yes.
Counselor Diamond,
Yes.
Counselor Meese,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
and Counselor Rose.
Yes.
All right, future budget planning initiative.
Got a good news, bad news scenario for you. If you saw, the governor put another budget out yesterday, and in that proposal, our deficit's only about a $1.2 million deficit. So while it's still terrible, it's not as terrible as $5.5 million we were at last week. Secondly, so that's kind of the good news, although it's not really good news.
So is that this sheet?
That is, yes, I believe so.
So that's the
That's what the
new-
governor's numbers as of yesterday.
Okay.
I believe we should say that in the third or fourth column on top. Governor's numbers 1016.
Yes, 1016.
The other, the bad news is, I'm sure you've all seen the news today, and our name was among towns that were listed as having a negative outlook. 25 towns received through Moody's Investor Services a negative outlook on their outstanding debt. And you recall in last month's meeting, we had Standard & Poor's had already a precursor out there that they were taking action against their towns that had their rating systems, and Moody's followed suit. There were 26 towns that are being looked at for a possible downgrade, which is a significant hindrance to your ability to borrow in the future, where a negative outlook is more like a black eye. And while it says it affects, the $3.45 billion of outstanding debt, Mark Chapman was here last month, and he said it won't affect our interest rate that we have already bonded for. What it affects is if you are the person holding our paper that you might have bought for maybe $1 or $2 on a dollar note, it might be worth 98 cents on a dollar now. So what these impacts hurt the value of our stock in the investment circle. So the bondholders are the ones who are going to feel the inability to recoup their money or get a lesser value for the stocks they own, the bonds they own of North Branford, or any of these towns that have the negative outlooks or the potential downgrades. So and we can get into the memo that I prepared about the pros and cons, but again, it's such a moving target, I don't want to waste a lot of time on it.
Well, doesn't it affect potentially that scenario is now active?
Correct.
I mean, we haven't, doesn't it affect our future borrowing if we end up borrowing for the police department, for
Correct.
example?
It will.
So how drastically will it affect?
He said probably up to 10 basis points. So again, depends on the size of the issuance. When you're looking at maybe the ECG bonding as well for the energy program we're talking about a little bit later on.
Right.
So there is potentially some bonding happening in the near future. And, let's hope that.
But isn't this directly related to the anticipated cut from the state in terms of funding?
You're 100% correct.
As of yesterday.
And, as of yesterday, now as of today, there is a new bipartisan proposal that's supposed to be aired tomorrow at 2:30.
At 2:30.
And hopefully voted on.
Let's hope so.
That is not the governor's proposal.
Okay. That's why I said I don't want to spend a lot of time because the numbers it's a moving target.
Correct.
We're either $5.5 million in the hole, $1.2 million in the hole, maybe positive tomorrow. You don't know.
So if there is a proposal that comes out and is adopted,
Right.
and if our governor is inclined to sign it, this may all be a moot point.
You are 100% correct. Say a prayer tonight.
Yeah.
So did Moody's do that based on this 1.2 million, or thinking it was the 5.5?
It had to be based on the
At the
5.
5.5. At the time that they did their review, we got some correspondence saying that they were looking at a variety of towns in Connecticut, and I mean we're amongst some of our neighbors, so it's not a
It's $1 million bucks would result.
It makes more sense
in a
if
change
it was
in status.
5.5 million.
Correct.
Than 1.2, okay.
correct.
But so let's say best case scenario, our prayers are answered and we are held further harmless this fiscal year.
Correct.
We're still under review by Moody's, so because it took so long for the state to come up with a budget and we suffered the cuts, and we already been cut.
It's not a review, it's a negative outlook.
Negative outlook.
It's
I think-
entirely different.
Okay.
Yeah, you're correct. I think, and to go back to Councilor Fornan's point, that the whole thing would kind of go away. They may reverse their position.
Okay.
Are we made whole or close to whole here at the budget?
Okay. Good. Well, that
All right.
uneventful.
After that cheery note, item G, status on cleanup of 944 Tucket Road.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten that far, other than Kurt and Fran were able to do a site walk on the property, and I have to defer to them in terms of the comment, but I think the next step, if we're going to move forward on that, would be to, obviously, to clear. You have to clear, but since then, a phone call from the interested party indicated that she was close to a deal with Bank of America, and they were trying to get a closing date set.
And that deal's going to entail taking care of the issues on the property?
She has indicated that she would come forward to work with the town to take care of those issues, yes, with the guidance and the outline and expectation of what the town wants to be done on that property.
Okay. Town signs.
Yeah, you have a prepared memo from Carrie in there, and a recommendation, as Dan had alluded to, from the EDC on a choice C that's in your packet with respect to the sign design, with a modification to include the logo. That is referenced as item C, but for whatever reason, they wanted to add the posts from F in there. I'm not sure why I wasn't part of that discussion, so I don't know. But Carrie has gone through and done some plotting as well as the little matrix that she provided.
So for this evening, I just wanted to provide you with an update, really. At the last town council meeting that I attended, Mayor Duty requested that I come forward with 4 recommendations. So those are highlighted, which is the Route 80 Guilford line, Route 80 East Haven line, because that sign had been very dilapidated, so Fran's guys removed that. Route 17, the North Haven line, and Route 22, the North Haven line. So again, we have a lot of steps to take before we get to actually installing these signs. The town council still has to decide on the type of design, and as Mike just mentioned, the EDC had made a recommendation for the examples that are in your packet, which is a PVC sign with a laminate overlay, and that's kind of the middle of the line pricing. It's not the most expensive, it's not the least, it's between $1,200 to $2,000. I don't have any design concepts though, but based on what the EDC had discussed, it sounded like having something with the town seal and then the welcome to town of North Branford or Northford, depending on the location. Also, I just want to quickly go over, Joan Tudor, who's a member of the EDC, and I did meet with someone from DOT. DOT has an Adopt a Sign program, and it's essentially to allow for towns to have signs within their right-of-way. So that would be what these signs would fall, that category they would fall into, because they would be within the right-of-way. The most interesting part of the meeting, though, was that once we go through that process, we would have to fill out a permit with DOT. They would be part of the Adopt a Sign program, and then the town would be responsible for maintaining the area around the sign. So I did mention to him both the prior North Branford sign on the East Haven line and the one that currently exists in North Haven is just naturally vegetated. We don't have any plantings, and I'm not sure that that's our expectation. But he said that DOT would be looking for the town to have some kind of plantings and then also mow around the sign. So that's just something to be aware of as we move forward. So whether the town takes that on or we look to local businesses to maybe help us with that component, but it's something that we should think about.
But if a local business, they're not able to go and mow or anything, Fran and his guys still have to take care of the area, right?
I think we
That's
could.
how I kinda read it, but I'm not sure.
I think we could, that could be up for discussion if there's. Because most of these locations are on DOT's property.
Right.
So if the town would have a contract or some kind of an agreement with a local business to maintain those areas, then they would be responsible.
Would it be appropriate for EDC to be looking to see if there's any interest on the part of any town businesses to participate in this?
Sure. Yeah.
I would think it would be helpful if we had some inkling as to whether or not, I know that there's one business that's already stepped up and said they would be interested in making their business font about a foot high in town of North Branford in a small font. I think that was pointed out. But we ought to see if we're going to pursue that Adopt a Sign program as to whether or not there's any interest in doing it. I don't think Public Works can plant gardens. You know.
Right.
Maybe they can. Seem to do everything else.
And I was in a good mood a couple of weeks ago, one day, and I was thinking that, before, this may be the last thing I publicly say, but I was thinking that, before we go ahead and buy signs, what can we do to further unite the town? And I don't understand what the history is we know why we're North Branford and why Northford is Northford. But, you know, maybe just to throw it out there, I know it brings out the crowds, like changing the colors, the school colors. But why not just come up, you know, why not name our town the town of Northford? And I got the very same look that Joe just gave me. But I'm just thinking, you know, what is the history there? And is that something that we would actually wanna have cake and coffee and discuss naming our town one town?
How do you, costly?
But,
It already is one town.
yeah.
Northford is
The
The
village.
village of.
in
Right.
North Branford,
Right,
so it's one town.
okay. I mean, because there's an identity thing going on here, though. You know, there always has been, for some reason.
But, so why did you pick Northford?
No,
I
because-
just,
I'll tell you,
like, it's
well,
the
my
town of Northford,
Well,
when it's already the town of North Branford, so I just was
Right.
wondering why
Well,
you.
the town of Northford, because we're not a part of Branford, right? So, the
But
town
we
of.
were a part of Branford.
We were.
Right.
But we're not now. So, the town of Northford would be, you know, basically merging the wording between North Branford and Northford. And getting rid of, you know, eliminating the Branford half of it. Just, you know, maybe I'm crazy. Joe's like, this is going off the rails.
It's,
Well, that was interesting.
waiting.
Yeah. So is this about signs, GPS, geolocation, or?
Way back in the 70s, I made a motion that we change the name of the town from North Branford to Totoket, the Indian name for the word, for the area. I thought it was a
okay.
great name. I couldn't get a second.
Yeah, right, there you go.
If you
Deservedly
want the
so.
history,
It's because.
it was bought from an Indian named Foxen.
Oh,
So that's where Foxen came from. And he was the son of an Indian chief up in Middletown. But he owned all of Totoket, which was all of Branford, North Branford, and Northford.
And Foxen was his name, it wasn't the tribe.
Foxen was his name.
Foxen was
It
his
wasn't
name.
that bad
Wasn't the
section of,
tribe. Yeah, you're right.
East Haven.
You're right.
So,
And that's why we have Foxen Road, Foxen Boulevard, Foxen
Apparently.
Hill Road.
You know, we've got a lot of serious business to cover, and this is ridiculous.
none of this is on the agenda.
The signs.
the signage.
Yeah.
The town of Northford, that's a good one, Dave.
Can we move on?
Well,
Well, we have to discuss the signage either way.
Well, I
the
think at
location.
this point, we go to EDC and look and talk about the possibility of business sponsorship and take it from there, I think, unless there's something else you want me to pursue.
Was EDC going to come up with a design?
This is,
Well, I think their recommendation is, I thought, if I understood right, that they're looking at this design here on C, Allentown, or Allen's Meadows, and just incorporating the town seal. Quite frankly, I think we have a good sign. and-
well, because the council already discussed that, and we all agreed that we didn't want the seal on the sign, correct?
right,
We
so
thought
then
that
we-
was a good sign.
it was kicked
Right.
back to EDC just to come up with a consensus as to the color, the layout, and the look of the sign is. So then they discussed it, now it's a consensus, so.
Maybe leave the design here for the council and the business side to,
So now we'll kick it back and just see
So
if.
all we want to see now is whether or not there's any interest in sponsorship.
Right.
And we can move forward.
right,
There you
okay.
go.
Sure.
No seal.
Anything else? I'm very relieved. 8I, review of the Board of Education decisions regarding the superintendent.
Yeah, I just kept that as a placeholder. I wasn't sure, I know I sent a letter to invite them to this meeting to discuss obviously, they declined. I'm not sure where the council wants to go, if they want to I don't know. So I was looking for direction. I just kept it on there in case you wanted to discuss it.
Well, there was the request, all of those, the 9 questions that we had in documentation, and to submit the documentation by October 13th. So I know there's a big thing in our Dropbox, so have they answered all of those questions so that we can move forward?
Yeah, I think everything's in the, as far as I know, I can review again, but I think there's 458 pages or whatever in terms of their response to all 9 questions.
Okay.
Some of it, and again, the non-responsive portion, if you will, is the minutes that are available on the website. And it was Counselor Candelora who asked, well, where is it on the minutes that says that they took this action? And my review is that you don't see piece by piece of a contract. You're just gonna see a motion to approve a contract. I believe everything they've done and continue to practice is in executive session. They all understand what they're voting on, but it's not reflected in the minutes in any way.
Well, it's not reflected in the motion.
No, it's not in the motion, it's not in the minutes, right? So it's, you're not gonna find, in terms of looking at, please submit the minutes and show us where you made these changes. It's lumped into the motion of a contract approval.
Well, this, we've been discussing this issue for a couple months now. And, my question is, what is the history? Because, the question came up, regarding, reimbursing the superintendent for $3,500 worth of unused vacation time. And, I was wondering, so I was looking forward to meeting with the board. Unfortunately, they refused to meet with us. That was too bad because I felt that could have answered a lot of questions that we all have. And then we made a motion to meet with Lou Paternoster, past chair of the BOE. That meeting was canceled, but I met with him anyways. And he explained to me that these practices have gone on for a long period of time, including when he was chairman of the Board of Education. So I looked back, I was wondering, I didn't understand where we were getting all of our information, right? Who is charged with gathering information to send to the state or not send to the state, or whatever we choose to do with it. So I was wondering what the history was, because I couldn't believe that this was the only time a contract had been manipulated or revised. I couldn't believe that would be this was the first time. So I called up Scott and I said, well, what is the history here? And I got information from Scott. I looked online, spent a decent amount of time. I discussed the situation, my thoughts with Marie. She did a lot of online looking, and we put together a packet here for you guys to all indulge yourselves in. And basically it shows that the Board of Education has acted in this way for the past, before Scott was superintendent, when Mr. Wolf was superintendent, and beforehand. And there's numerous cases.
Go all the way around.
When the healthcare was manipulated and it revised, raises were revised without the board ever voting. So I just, I think this is all we've all spent a tremendous amount of time on this. At least I have. I know Marie has. And I know these questions put pressure on the administration, and it does affect morale in the schools. And that's my concern. We've taken our eye off the ball of educating the children and advocating for their education. So you guys have a packet, which if we do end up sending anything to the state, I would want it to be included with that, showing the history here. And that's basically it.
I think when Dan called me and I decided to go online and start looking at minutes from board meetings. And after having talked with, as Dan said, we met with Lou. I think yes, the Board of Education is an independent organization, but I think that over the years, their past practice has continued. It's not just this particular situation. When you go in and you look, and it took a lot of time to look at the minutes. What I think Dan and I tried to do, and we just decided to do this actually last night, we worked on it. If you look at the history And I know that one time it was said, that it's not in the board bylaws or the policies that the chair on his or her own can make decisions. That has happened throughout the years. And I think overall, although we can't tell the board what to do, what we kind of came to a conclusion is that the Board of Education should rethink their procedures and policies and not have it set in such a way that a chair can change things. And we went online, and it took a lot of time, and you'll see, for example, if you look at,
And a good example is F, for example, where Cheryl Smith executed on July 1st, 2006 through June 30th, 2009, contract of employment between the Board of Education and Dr. Wolf. In my same capacity as board chairperson, I also executed the September 21st, 2007 addendum to that contract of employment, et cetera, et cetera. It is both the board's policy and the intention of both parties that Dr. Wolf receive full pay for any of the unused 25 vacation days he is entitled to receive in his final year of employment, plus the accumulated vacation time up to 75 days. So the point here is that in the past, superintendents have been reimbursed, and in the past, board chairs have acted unilaterally in doing so. And those were the questions here.
I think what we were trying to do in our own minds to understand the situation and past practice, and you, Rose, you would have a better understanding because you were on the board for a long time and were chair at one time. But I think our overall feeling after doing all this research is, yes, the board is an independent organization, but it should rethink its past practice. And we tried to kind of clarify it in our minds and then hopefully clarify it for other people to look at. Again, it does take a lot of time to go through. The minutes start only on the website at 2003. So that's where we started looking at those. And that's where we took those for the most part, the documentation.
And here's another one. Example G, up to 12 days of unused vacation time may be submitted for pay each year at the per diem rate determined by dividing the total annual salary compensation by 240 days. These paid days shall then not be included in the accumulation of the subsequent work year. The addendum does not impact any other clause regarding vacation time, and that was done by Deb Prunier, chairman of the board at the time. And so my thinking is that this may not be appropriate. I don't think it is, and I don't think it's appropriate that any chairperson act unilaterally. But my point is that it's been done, and this is something that's got to change, but it's been done. It didn't just happen a month ago. And my also beef is, Mike's not here, but my problem is that while we're critiquing the BOE for the chair behaving in a way that without the rest of the board taking a vote, Mike canceled the meeting with Lou. And we voted to have that meeting with Lou. So what right did he have to do that? So there's a little bit of hypocrisy going on here. It's not appropriate on either board.
So I'm gonna argue with you on your hypocrisy.
Okay.
Because I've been here off and on since 1989. You will never find one case in these chambers where a single member of this board has given somebody a raise, has paid them for unused vacation time, has changed their health insurance, and the Board of Ed follows those same rules. And
They don't
I'm gonna
follow
tell you
those
where I'm at. Well, they don't, but every other Board of Ed does.
Well, they should. I agree with you.
So I agree with you there. And where I'm actually at with this whole thing is, in the last month, we've appointed 3 new board members. And I'm thinking that, they're probably reading the same stuff we are. I'm sure they can read and
all out there.
comprehend. And you know what? They're gonna reorganize and they're going to be meeting going forward and hopefully they'll come to the same conclusion that we'll that we have, that, you know, this is wrong, it can't be done. And the only other thing is that I'm gonna say on this is, in this one here, from this, and I want Joe to, because you're the two attorneys.
Three.
We got three.
Three attorneys, I'm sorry. In this, I don't even know what page you are, is it page C?
It has a letter up on top.
Has the letter C on top. When you read this here, I'm wondering if we can get this attorney disbarred or thrown out. I mean, for him to put,
For that legal
for
opinion.
him, that's a legal opinion that says the board chair can verbally authorize this sort of a modification. The board chair cannot, and that's been our whole point.
And what we were trying to do by doing some research, so we had a better understanding, is to show you that we see it's been a past practice for a long time. It's not just.
Well, you know what, it came in with Dr. Wolf. He was very good at it.
And if you
Okay.
look at those, if
And
you
then when you
some
look
of the-
at it, that's why we called him out on it in 2011.
But if
Okay?
you look at some of those attachments, I think he was the superintendent when some of those chairs made those decisions.
What's that?
I think he was the superintendent.
He
on
was.
those
Oh,
two
absolutely,
examples
he
here.
brought the idea to town.
Okay, so what we're
But
saying.
then, the problem is, so you read this stuff, and you can say, okay, if you aren't a person of business, and you're not someone who reads a lot of contracts, and you don't never question authority, you would read this thing and say, hey, this attorney said that the board chair, even though by their own rules and regulations, it says that no member can encumber the rest of the board financially, this guy's, oh, the board chair can pay the guy for vacation time, he can do it verbally, done all the time. Joe, can we, so I've looked at this stuff so much, I'm like, you know what?
Well, you know what?
So
I'm
you've
not
seen-
mad at Marcy, I'm not mad at Diane, I'm pissed that this attorney, this guy is the problem.
So then you would agree then that this has got to change.
This
It's not
attorney,
necessarily the
For him to
superintendent
put
that's the
this
problem
in
here.
writing, I wanna know what the town can do, because when you look at all this stuff, we're not talking $5,000 or $10,000, we're talking since Dr. Wolf's time, maybe $100,000.
Oh,
And you know what, we just.
Okay,
we-
easy.
Okay, I think we.
So, this attorney is at fault because he was here with Bob Wolf. He's the guy that gave him the wrong information. And I don't care, if they wanna, if the board want, and I've been saying this all along, if they wanna give all this stuff away, have a freaking public vote and do it.
And you need to understand our reasoning for doing this. We needed to have clarification and understanding and timeline. I think it was helpful, and it was helpful to try to put it together, to look at
Mary,
it.
I'm not arguing with you, I'm
Okay.
agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Really? Okay.
And you've got it right here in black and white. The
I-
attorney says that the board chair can verbally make an agreement on a contract.
Okay, and that, again, that's.
And that says it all.
That's in the purview
That
of the.
says it all. We don't have to say anything else.
That's in the purview of the Board of Ed, obviously, we can't
That
make
says
those
it all.
decisions. But-
Well, we are the financial board, and if this guy, you know what, I mean, I don't know why it's cost the town's taxpayers an awful lot of money.
Well, but also, it costs the town's taxpayers an awful lot of money when somebody's FOIing the board 20 FOIs and the town 20 FOIs, when all they have to do is find this, and that's at least their rationale for doing what they do. Right? And that was the start of this. So this is at least the rationale for a lot of what the FOIs are all about. And each FOI, I bet you takes Mike 3 or 4 hours to evaluate. How much time and money is that?
So, Joe, you're being quiet on
Well,
my attorney thoughts.
I'm not gonna render an opinion off the cuff.
I know.
It
I know.
strikes me as strange advice. That's about as far as I will go.
Yeah, okay. I
And
respect that.
I just question whether or not.
And you know what, I mean,
it's-
we've got a lot of new members on the board, I think we, at this point, number one, and we're gonna have a new council. So, the new board members and the old board members, they gotta come to terms with this. We've called them out on it, and it's up to them to act on it.
Well, in my opinion.
Or not, and come tell us where we're wrong.
In my
But,
opinion, there is nothing, wrong. I mean, the advice by the attorney in this in writing may not be, may not be good sound legal advice. However, I've known of situations where things have been done, and then it's brought to a motion later on. And on August 31st, it's right in here, moved by Secretary Prunier and seconded by Vice Chair to ratify the agreement reached between Dahlmeyer and the school superintendent. So it's an ex post facto situation which alleviates any problem that there was any wrongdoing because it will pass the Board of Ethics.
See, and and I don't wanna debate this, cause I wanna dump it on the Board of Ed, but nobody has proven to me that it's in his contract that he gets paid for this, okay? The thing that was done for Dr. Wolf was on his final year, okay? We talked about this. In the contract, it doesn't speak to it. Now, Dan says to me, oh, Al, if it doesn't speak to something in the contract, that means it's in there, or it could be. And I said, no. I've written contract, if it's not in there, it's not in there. So, in my opinion, they would have needed to open up his contract to make this right.
If these were done
They would have needed
appropriately,
to open
you're
up his
right.
contract, vote to pay him for his unused vacation time, not in the last year, periodically. A sound board and financial decision would be, we don't want to pay a guy making $187,000 a year for 25 days every year. We better set a limit on this, So maybe we'll pay him for 5 days a year or 10 days a year if he can't use them. So they would have had to vote on that. Then they would have had to vote to do that. And then I would say, okay, now we can't argue anymore. And I went right to the sick pay. Sick pay is clearly spelled out what's bought back, how it's bought back. Vacation time just says you can accumulate 25 days. There's
that's
nothing
not-
that says you have to pay for those
But
25
because
days.
because the
on the last
contract
day.
is silent on an issue doesn't necessarily make it wrong or illegal.
True. It's
That's,
I
that's the part of
agree.
law that you.
I
you
agree,
have
it
to
doesn't
look
make
at.
it wrong or illegal.
Okay.
It's,
But it doesn't give you still would have to vote to pay him for something.
it
There's
depends on
no
how you,
place in there
depends how
that
you
could
read
vote pay.
that line
Well,
though, the
number
line,
two.
vacation time shall be cumulative for 75 days. That's where it's, what you're saying, it should be clearer.
That
What
says
does
that he could get 75 days of vacation time. Where does it say it gets bought back?
Well, then,
And I don't even want to argue about it.
it's not our argument. I mean, we all agree that
We all
we
agree.
cannot proceed, they cannot proceed
They
in-
can't
in
continue
this-
acting this way.
in this fashion.
But
And I
what's
have
also
complete faith
clear
in
is
them.
that they've been doing it for a long
Right,
time.
right. We cannot proceed with, coming really close to accusing people of doing things when it's really not the case. That it's a new practice. That's why it's really unfortunate the board, elected under the advice of their attorney, so they say, to not meet with us, because this could have all been prevented if we just had a meeting with them, to air our problems, and so they could move forward in a better way. That's unfortunate.
Okay, anybody else? All right, the hour is getting late, so my inclination is to move on unless there are any further comments on this topic. We'll go on to new business, discussion and action, review of the ECG group proposal for energy-saving performance contracting.
At the last meeting, ECG was the firm that came in and gave a presentation about performance contracting. Again, just to review that, if we're spending, say, $10 a year on electricity, they may find savings to bring that down to $7 a year. And our debt service to fund those improvements would be the remaining $3. So our total expenditures would not increase over where they are today. If by chance it comes in greater, it's savings to us. If it comes in less, the savings were made whole. It's a guaranteed contract. At this point, it's just a matter of engaging them to go forward and create the list. It's not committing the town to anything. We still, if you recall, have the ability to back out at any time down the road. But I think it's worthwhile, at no cost to us, to have them go through. We have done a lot of work on the schools, but the Stanley T. Williams comes to mind as one that has a serious roof issue. It's an older building. The mechanicals in that building are very old. Any building around town, the ambulance building, Franny's building, all the various systems needs looking at and needs some expenditures. So if we can do it at a cost where it doesn't expend additional tax dollars of what we're spending today, it makes sense to proceed, at least to get the study done and create a list for you guys to look at down the road. All you're doing authorizing today is for them to go on, do the review, make a list to bring back to the town council.
Is there a deadline, a drop dead date when they have to do this by, so the town council, the new sitting town council will know when it's coming in?
Well, the target they always shoot for is the summer months when there's no kids in school to do the majority of their work. So I believe he said they would look to maybe January and then have a report back, I think it was March, April timeframe to go out to bid to the ESCOs and do it over next summer was their target.
But we should have it before budget season, so that we can, if there's something that needs to be addressed, we can do it in our budget. I mean, if we're gonna act on anything that comes up, if we're gonna act on it in next year's budget.
Correct.
We should have it before we go into the budget. So their proposal, or what they come up with, we should have that.
March, April, the latest.
Well, to me, April's too late, because you already have the budget developed by then. You're presenting budget in March.
Correct.
To us. So is there any possibility that they could have
I'll ask.
something to us
Sure.
earlier than that?
Sure.
I mean, I think that just leads into the whole future planning budget initiative that Al had talked about earlier, that's on our agenda. April, to me, is too late, because budget's set by then.
So if your motion read that they'd have to report back by January 31st, that would give the town council enough time for their budget, if whatever expenditure's gonna be, or January 31st is still not enough time.
I'd go end of February.
February 28th?
Give them some time to do some work.
Okay, well, that's the last month of February, February 28th. And then you'll have it by April 1st.
By March, yeah. March for the budget. Meetings are in April. All right, so you want to amend the motion to say the report must be back by February 28th?
2018.
Correct.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it. Be it hereby resolved that the North Branford Town Council hereby authorizes Michael T. Paul as town manager to enter into an agreement with the ECG Group for the purposes of determining a list of potential energy-saving projects in both the town and Board of Education building. The final list will be brought back to the town council no later than February 28th, 2018, for a decision on whether to proceed on any or all projects.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, we don't spend a dime, and as of February 28th, we still don't have to spend a dime if we say no.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Hearing no further comments, roll call?
Deputy Mayor Fenton.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Arman?
Yes.
Counselor Candelora?
Yes.
Counselor Diamond?
Yes.
Counselor Mays?
Yes.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
All right, the next item of business is the POCO Festival, review of financials, reappointment of the coordinator.
Yeah, I just, this item came up last meeting, and you now have the financial, or the preliminary financials, and I think that's a pretty good,
They had an excellent year.
yeah, pretty good numbers. And I know Lauren's here to speak to the fact that I believe the Parks and Recs had reviewed and made a recommendation as well in terms of the festival coordinator position, and they've reviewed the numbers as well. Oh, they haven't seen the number, okay. But so it's a twofold, but importantly, to get our coordinator back on track and ready for next year. So, you know, Jen is here and Lauren is here if you have any questions, but I would like to see that, you know, if the council is okay with that, and get her reappointed and started for next year.
So you're looking for a motion for the reappointment of the coordinator?
I'd like to do that. Be hereby resolved that the North Branford Town Council confirms the appointment of Jen McCullough to serve as the 2018 Potato and Corn Festival Coordinator at a rate of $18 per hour, with a total budget for her time not to exceed $22,600.
Second.
Discussion.
Motion by Counselor Arman, seconded by Counselor Miller. Any further discussion?
Yes. So, this hourly rate and the not to exceed don't, when I did the numbers, don't equal the part-time position of approximately 1,000 hours. Because if you divide the 22.6 by 18, you get like 1,255, which you're over the part-time status, and then what does that do to us? So that's, well, that, because she gets, does she get paid by the hour?
Yes.
So then the two don't jive. Because I know the other coordinator was getting paid more than 18 an hour. And it's roughly 1,000 hours a year, because it's roughly, it has to average out to 19 hours a week. So that comes out to 988 hours. So this doesn't jive.
Well, why isn't she paid at the same rate that Roseanne was?
I don't know, that's why I brought it up.
What was
I'd like to
Roseanne,
see that.
what was her pay, Roseanne's?
Am I correct in saying $19.99 an hour here? $19.99 an hour.
So,
So why wouldn't you be paid the same?
so,
I would like to see that.
okay.
Well, I thought she was more than 20,000 though, because we had given her, there were raises that went to like
That's what I was
21.
gonna ask about the 2.5%, which is what is normally given to administrators as well. So if we add that in, does it come to the 22.6?
Why don't we just amend the motion to whatever the correct hourly rate is and cap it at no more than 1,000 hours, rather than putting it in a gross sum?
It's fine. I just, because she's paid hourly, I just didn't want this to be reflected in
Right.
Oh, I
this.
think you're absolutely right.
Right.
It's a good, you raised a good point. So does somebody want to amend the motion?
You want to amend your motion?
As amended. Because we don't know what the numbers are.
Well, it would,
$19.99 an hour, not to exceed 1,000 hours.
Okay, so be hereby resolved that the North Branford Town Council confirms the appointment of Jen McCulloch to serve as the 2018 Potato and Corn Festival Coordinator at a rate of $19.99 per hour, not to exceed 1,000 hours, or $22,600.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, because
No,
$19.99.
no.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't- Okay.
yeah, the
doesn't work.
1999
What?
doesn't work.
Right.
That
You just
doesn't
told
work.
me.
Right.
Right.
Just gonna say-
That-
1999 comes out to $19,999.
Right.
It's not 22,600. That's the
Not
whole
yet.
problem.
Right.
Because then she goes over the threshold for being a
Yeah.
part-time
But,
employee.
but the other coordinator was paid more than 1999.
So can we amend, and I'm asking, I don't know, can we amend the motion to read not to exceed the 22.6 and
Yes.
drop the hourly rate?
Yes.
And we keep track of.
Do over.
You need an hourly rate in your motion.
You do.
Okay, so then what's 1,000 divided by 20? 22.6?
So it looks like.
2260.
That's what I was just saying.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
Ta-da.
We're giving her 10% raises left, right, and center here.
Yeah, right. Good you hung out,
Maybe I
John.
should ask-
Yeah, but we didn't go up on the
That's
gross
really
amount.
hard.
Okay. Be it hereby resolved that the North Branford Town Council confirms for the third time, the appointment of Jen McCulloch to serve as the 2018 Potato and Corn Festival Coordinator at a rate of $22.60 per hour, with a total budget for her time not to exceed $22,600.
No, the 1,000 hours.
1,000 hours, right, or,
That's
okay,
what
1,000
goes on,
hours.
right.
Second.
There you go. Yikes.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Did you have something else?
No, any questions on the preliminaries while we're?
Well,
here?
let's
No,
do the
let's-
motion first, because
Okay.
that's just the coordinator.
Because your pay's only gonna go down from here, so get it over with.
Deputy Mayor Quinn.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Arman.
Yes.
Counselor Candelora.
Yes.
That's
Counselor
astonishing.
Diamond.
Yes.
Counselor Meese.
Yes.
Counselor Miller.
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
On the preliminary, I just have a quick, did we figure the team incentives in there already and the, parking, all that's already in your expenses, even?
Parking and team incentives, no. But we have those numbers that we worked on in the meeting to send it out. So we still have plenty of cushion as far as
Other contractual.
where
So
those
so
numbers
that's
are.
roughly 8,000 right there then. That has to come off of, that will come off of that
And-
total.
Right, and a couple of bills, we've still got one or two this week as well.
Okay, I mean, you still,
Yeah,
you
so
still
we're still-
did very well
Right.
on the festival.
But we had no capitals this year, which Fran, I've been having discussion with Fran, we'll have quite a bit of capital movements for next year, so.
And it's great to get the numbers so quickly. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
So is the money you paid to the amusement rides and other contractual?
Yes. That is in there, fireworks, police, shuttles, electrician, sound system, all the bands.
So usually after you have your final is when we get the breakdown of all those expenses
Okay.
as to what's in, what that,
Category.
yeah, like other contractual, because that's such a large number,
Yes.
then it's usually broken down in.
Same thing as miscellaneous revenue.
Yeah, we're just waiting to get everything kind of settled and pull it all together, but it is all listed out.
What's
Any
the
further
hardest-
questions?
What's the hardest number to get,
Hardest
that you're,
number
that
to
you're
get?
waiting, that you're still waiting for?
Just in bills to come in.
Yeah, but who's,
We've got a couple bills out for signs right now that we're waiting on paying. We're waiting on a couple W-9s for people who haven't really, like the Parnas family. She didn't know about that, so we had all her invoices for all her race expenses. But we didn't get her W-9 from her, and then that had to be processed to get it out and things like that. We've got licensing, the music licensing people
Some
start coming
publicity.
out of the woodwork. Once you pay one, they all get on you, so.
Some publicity. But
But yeah, for the most part.
most part, the big ones are in.
yeah, good, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks.
The next item is a resolution on the White House sewers. I assume that's tabled since we're going to be refining that regulation. Item D, review of LED streetlights.
Yeah, I put together a memo for you, on UI's program. I will say that, I did have an opportunity to observe the demonstration that they did along with Lieutenant Lovelace and Fran Marola. The item, and there's a ton of information in here, but I think the compromise, or my recommendation would be that this is a good program, it's gonna save us some money. But I think the 3K is sufficient enough and should be recommended for the residential areas, so as not to create any problems for, drivers and/or health issues with respect to the different intensities of the color of light and the heat and so forth.
And you're satisfied the 3K
I'm-
provides sufficient illumination?
Yeah, I think the issue is and Lieutenant Lovelace had cautioned just, if, where possible, internally for us to decide when we respond back to UI in those non-residential, higher traffic areas with their expertise and their recommendation where those 4Ks would be, but I think those would be limited, and the majority should be, I think, 3K.
Everything that I've read on this suggests that the 4K proves to be problematic.
Yeah.
And I can't see any reason why we can't go uniformly with 3K. The glare that comes from the 4K is significant and troubling, and I can't even begin to see too much area that is sufficiently removed from residential areas that I think that we should even bother departing from it. So I think the 3K makes sense uniformly.
I think when you read this piece from the American Medical Association, I totally agree. The 4K makes me nervous when it talks about some of the things that happen to people with the 4K and the glare. I agree. I think it should all be 3K. I mean, I read this one carefully from the American Medical Association, and it is a little scary.
Mhm.
to go 4K.
I think we'd be fine.
Pardon?
I think you're right. I think we'd be fine, and George, uniformly 3K. I was just, I wanted to, because.
All right, well, is anybody advocating the 4K LED lights? So it's pretty much a moot point.
Is there a motion on that?
Do we need to make a motion on that?
There is a suggested motion, yeah, because I have to execute with UI.
What page
And
is
this
it?
reflects that
It's on page
citizens,
80.
Can you read it?
Sure.
Mike, this reflects that citizens' input that we discussed.
Yes, and I did speak with Donna. Donna's here, and
Rose.
she
Oh, good.
submitted,
Oh, there you are.
God, it's tons.
written information that corresponds
Thank
exactly
Thank you very
with
much
what
for all your help
AMA
on
said.
this.
All right, so the motion is the North Branford Town Council hereby approves the proposed LED streetlight agreement submitted by the UI and authorizes the town manager to execute any and all necessary documents for the implementation of the program, but noted that we are gonna go with the 3K lights. So if there's anything in the UI agreement here that says 4K,
Or any other number.
Or if you just want to state that you want to execute all necessary documents for the implementation of 3K only program or something like that.
Did I hear a second for the motion?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, motion by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Counselor Arman. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
yes.
Counselor Arman.
Yes.
Counselor Candelora.
I was just looking like, what's the cost, $500 maximum? That's it?
If we get into, no cost borne by us, but unless we get into
That's what I was
replacement of
looking
pole or
All right.
other issues down the road. No, Curtis, that's my understanding, there's no cost.
Counselor Diamond.
Yes.
Counselor Mace.
Yes.
Counselor Miller.
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
All right, the next item is Public Act 17155, temporary health care structures. Carrie.
So in July, the state legislature passed Public Act 17-155, which is temporary healthcare structures. I was here in September and briefly described the act. Planning and Zoning had a public hearing on October 5th, and as a result of their discussion and the comments that they received, they decided to opt out of that, meaning that the town would not allow the temporary healthcare structures as a matter of right. So in our zoning regulations, we allow for accessory apartments right now, so in-law apartments, so they felt that that was satisfactory. They had concerns about these temporary healthcare structures being potentially RVs, so they recommended opting out. So I'm here this evening also recommending that the town council vote to opt out, because in order for the town to opt out as a whole, we need both Planning and Zoning Commission and the town council to be on the same page.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I'll make the motion. The North Branford Town Council hereby opts out of Public Act 17-155, temporary health care structures. The reasons for opting out are as follows. The act has ambiguous language. Enforcement will be difficult. The act does not preclude travel trailers, campers, etc. We have a liberal and successful accessory dwelling regulation. It would be an excessive burden on the health district.
Second.
All right, motion by Counselor Diamond, seconded by Counselor Miller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Arman.
Yep.
Counselor Candelora.
Yes.
Counselor Diamond.
Yes.
Counselor Mace.
Yes.
Counselor Miller.
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Abstain.
Item F, discussion of solar panels on vacant town land.
There's nothing in here.
Well, I was thinking that, we do have a lot of town land that is not being utilized, and, Branford had the Go Solar Branford program. I did have a brief discussion with Counselor Rose about it, because he knows this stuff as well. And I was wondering what our options would be to utilize some of the unused town land, like our landfill, for example, and there were some other parcels as well that, Al, you may want to mention. But then, Carrie, did you come up with anything regarding, no? Did that go nowhere?
So, you know, we had talked about the landfill location, but I kind of defer to Kurt on that, just because of the distance from Cyril Road, and also I don't know if the cap can sustain the weight of solar panels.
I noticed it's been done elsewhere, that was the question.
Right, right. I don't have any specific examples for this evening.
Okay, could we look into this? I
So
mean,
are you specifically wondering about the landfill?
I'm wondering about the landfill, and I'm wondering about other parcels that maybe we could utilize for solar panels.
Yeah, I mean, is there somebody that can come in and talk? I mean, when you get out of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, there's solar farms everywhere. Now, they're not the best thing to look at, but they're not the worst thing to look at. So they must generate an income for somebody. So if you look, and the town has an awful lot of land. So if you looked at, and just to throw a piece of land out there, if you look at the piece by the high school, the Mill Road, I think it's 15 acres. Mill Road and 22. So if that was a solar farm, what does that run? Does it run the neighborhood? Does it run half the town? How does this work, and who pays us for it? So that was kind of the conversation that me and Dan had on one of our numerous conversations about things that really don't amount to much. But if there has to be money in it to be made for somebody, or they wouldn't be all over the Northeast. You don't see them in Connecticut, and maybe that's because we don't like what they look like, I don't know. But is there somebody out there that could come in, like, does UI have someone that could come in and say, you know what, this is how it works, this is how much money you make per acre, and, just something to think about. And did I leave anything out, Dan?
No, that was good.
Yeah, I think we could get somebody from UI.
Yeah.
So I would think they would probably either buy the power back, or
they can guide us in terms of.
guide us.
I'm sure this question has come up to them before.
and maybe the money that's raised, maybe they're private landowners doing it, but I mean, there's some big solar farms out there that,
Well,
have
if it's
the
worth
cost-
it, if it's worth it for a homeowner, then maybe it's worth it for a town as well.
Right, I mean, we can at least see what kind of money could be generated, or power could be generated.
Okay.
Maybe help.
Get names for you, or work with UI.
Yeah, we can work on that.
All right, moving on. Financial report as of September 30th.
Well, the financial report fortunately remains unremarkable for the current year. Property taxes continue to exceed prior years. Overall revenue continues to exceed prior years. Expenditure continues to lag behind prior years. No departments are overexpended. It's all good news.
So Moody's doesn't know what they're talking about.
Correct.
Appropriation transfers.
I just have one question.
Oh, sorry.
Debt service,
Yes.
right? I'm looking at, what, 78.8?
I think there's some more transfers in there.
No, the lion's share of the majority of our debt hits August 1st.
All right.
Good
Thank you.
catch. No, it all hits August 1st. Two transfers before you tonight. One in your packet, basically as an FYI, relates to Carrie and the Planning and Zoning Commission. The budget, if you recall, for the clerks for a couple town commissions and boards was changed after the fact. So her department, 671, is going to be overexpended in her part-time salary line. However, she cannot fund that internally because it's a very small department. So it won't be funded until after April 1st, when we can take money inter-department. This is more of a heads up that's going to come down the road. The second one you have in your packet, I believe you were given tonight, relating to Mr. Marola. He's embarking on a new process of trying to save money on salt for the roads, and involves a de-icing substance he's going to apply to straight salt versus buying treated salt. And we have some huge containers behind Public Works, needs a pump to pump the material out of those huge containers into individual trucks. You see a transfer of $5,500 going from his 206 account, construction materials, where salt would come from theoretically, to 405 technical equipment to buy that pump.
All right, do we have a motion?
Well, I think is it,
So resolved that the North Branford Town Council hereby approves the following appropriation transfer as recommended by the town manager and treasurer finance secretary. Treasurer finance director.
Second.
Anthony, do you have another copy?
Any discussion?
Here.
No, that's,
Just pass it down so we don't have it.
wasn't there one in here too?
All right, roll call, Michelle?
Deputy Mayor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Arman,
Yes.
Counselor Candelora,
Yes.
Counselor Diamond,
Yes.
Counselor Mace,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
No, it's the same.
Oh, it's the same thing?
Yeah. Okay, tax refunds. Motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Counselor Diamond, seconded by Counselor Candelora. Any discussion?
Yeah, the only thing for Michelle to note is that the total in our packet is different. It was the erroneous,
That's what the
I mean,
difference is.
that's what the
It's the
difference
total.
is.
Right.
Everything's the same except the total should be 3,919
You need a copy?
versus what's in our packet.
What is this picture?
There you go.
All right, roll call, please.
Why is this picture?
Deputy Mayor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Arman.
Yes.
Counselor Candelora.
Yes.
Counselor Diamond.
Yes.
Counselor Mace.
Yes.
Counselor Miller.
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
Town council meeting schedule for
I think we
2018.
should table that, don't you think?
Yeah.
I don't think that should be our bailiwick. It should
Right,
be
let the
Right.
next council.
the next council. Everybody in agreement with that?
Move to table.
Second.
Citizen statements and petitions.
Bill Savage, down on Sunnyside Drive. Thank you for appointing me, passing the vote to appoint me to Hazardous Waste Committee. Just a minute ago, you talked about solar panels. There was an article in Hamden about a year and a half ago about how they were putting these panels on the dump there. They were putting all these solar panels on the dump, so maybe Mike can call town manager there and see how it went over there. My real reason coming up tonight is about the superintendent. Early September, when I sort of, you see me at the meeting here, I got on board with the hearing about this. I said, let me go view the video. So I went to YouTube, which you go through to Target TV, and you click on YouTube videos, and I noticed that, and I had gone back on a lot of stuff in the past, but all of a sudden I noticed there was, for the last 2 years, in September 2015, there was no YouTube videos on the Board of Ed. And so now I went to the public access, which is local TV, and you get the three, it's divided into three: community, education, and government. So you open up the education, and the Board of Ed meetings runs 4 times a day. 2:30 in the morning, 9:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the afternoon, and 9 at night. Except in mid to late September, they were running the June 15th meeting. June. They were not caught up as far as late September. Now, when I first found out about the videos, I called. I understand there's a limited crew there. I've called before. I eventually got answers. So I got no answer, I left a message. Then, a few days later, an email, nothing. Did that twice. Again, this is from when the night or the next day, early September when I went home. So For over 2.5 weeks, I left 2 unanswered calls, 2 unanswered emails. Finally, somewhere on the 3rd week, got an email, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we'll get to it by the next week. The next week, on Friday, which I'm not remembering all the dates, 13 videos come up from the past Board of Ed meetings, eliminating, or they omitted, the July meeting.
They didn't have a meeting in July.
Well, they had it scheduled.
Right, it was canceled.
So, but then going back to the public access, I mentioned that to them that they're not keeping up to speed. So by mid to late September, they were showing the August 8th and the August 31st meeting. And late September now, we already had the September meeting, and that's not up, and it's still not up to today. It's still, as of today, showing the late August 2 meetings. There was 1 full meeting, and then there was 1 quick meeting where they actually took the vote to pass for the superintendent's board. Again, I'm up here to just say, I looked at those meetings, they're not there. I don't know why they got dropped. Maybe somebody can talk to the people, the powers to be, because they're not answering the phone for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
So I have one.
Well,
This
wait a
is-
minute.
Who?
Well, Cliff wants to speak.
Come on up, Cliff. Sorry.
I don't want to keep you late, but I want to thank you for all the hard work you've all done. This is your last meeting before the election. As a viewer and as a participant here, I don't see a lot of change coming. You guys have performed 200% under the most difficult conditions you could ever have. You've had so much crap thrown at you from both sides of the microphone and from the state, and you still come back for more pain. God bless you, and take lots of Advil.
So that is reflecting on what I was gonna say, you know, who knows what's gonna happen in November, but I have to say, this is my 3rd year doing this, and what an honor and a joy it is to work with all of you. And I wish everybody running the best of luck, but I really have a tremendous amount of respect for everybody on this side of the name and over there on the town side. I really appreciate the opportunity, so thank you to everybody.
Any further public comment? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Aye.
Third.